We're going to go ahead and, sorry, my voice carries. We're going to go ahead and reconvene the meeting. Right now, I'm going to ask one of our council members, Suzanne Watley, to come down, and she's going to give us the invocation, and then we're going to ask some special guests that Suzanne will introduce to do the pledge to the American flag and to the Texas flag. Suzanne?
Thank you, sir. Would you please join me in prayer? Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you this evening with hearts full of gratitude for this city. We lift our council members before you, acknowledging the responsibility and the challenges we face in guiding our community toward prosperity, unity, and well-being. Ground to our council wisdom, discernment, and a spirit of collaboration as we make decisions that will impact the lives of our fellow citizens. May we be guided by a sincere desire to serve the greater good, putting the needs of the community above all. We pray for the well-being of our city, its residents, and may your love and grace be evident in all we undertake. Heavenly Father, we ask your protection over our city, staff, leaders, and all who call Sugar Land home. We ask you to be ever present and protect our first responders. It is in your holy name we pray. Amen. And now we have some special guests who will help us do the pledge to our flag, the United States flag, and our Texas flag. You can be seated. Thank you. Because that would take a while. The Shabbat of Sugar Land is our group tonight. This is an organization that is dedicated to the welfare of the Jewish people. With an international presence of over 3,500 institutions in all 50 states and over 100 companies, they are united in a simple philosophy: love every Jew, reach out to every Jew, and educate every Jew. Their goal is to encourage study, morality, community, and Jewish pride. The local center is a meeting place for religious, social, and educational events. Today, in a world that seems to be filled with hostility and division, their work is more urgent than ever. With an astonishing rise in anti-Semitism in this country and worldwide, the call of the hour is more connection, more Jewish pride, and more acts of goodness and kindness. As for the Rebbe Rabbi Menachem, and if I mispronounce this, I am so sorry, Mendel Schneerson, and the most influential contemporary Jewish figure and the leader of the Shabbat movement, would often relate, light is the most powerful creation, for even a little bit of light dispels a lot of darkness. So tonight we have students, Rebecca Sasson, and come on up here and help us. Rebecca, Anna Gratz, Hayden Reichenbach, and Caitlin Yiger. We also have Rabbi Ari Figensten, and he is Associate Rabbi of Shabbat of Sugar Land and the co-director of C-Teen Sugar Land. You want to come on up? And we have Mrs. Bosch Shiva Figensten, the co-director of C-Teen Sugar Land. You're going to be doing the video, right? Okay. Who would like to say the pledge tonight and lead us? Would you all please stand to join us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, one indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God and one indivisible.
Thank you very, very much. Do y'all want a picture?
Yeah, let's bring it.
I'm going to do a picture.
And now we've got a special recognition. And it's more than just a recognition. Don, I'm going to ask you to come down with me. Dr. Cox, if you could please come down. So when Nancy and I moved to Sugar Land in 1990, we had a Yorkshire Terrier that was, well, it was a great dog. Guess who my vet was? It was Dr. Cox. And then in the 90s, I became involved with city council, not on city council, and not even on P&Z, but just involved with council. And I became aware that Dr. Cox was our veterinarian, the veterinarian for the city of Sugar Land, which is a requirement of state law. And tonight we're going to celebrate 26 years of service to the city of Sugar Land. I thought I'd been here for a while. You've been here a lot longer than I have. And he recently went through some health issues. We're glad to have him back. We're glad to be able to recognize him. We're a bit sad that he can't be our veterinarian anymore, but we absolutely understand. And he's still open for business over there, so go see him. I'm going to read this recognition, and then I'm going to ask Dawn if she'd like to say a few words because she works closely with him or did work. This is a certificate of recognition for Dr. James L. Cox for 26 years of service. Dr. Cox graduated from Auburn University School of Veterinary Medicine in 1982 and opened Sugar Creek Animal Clinic in February of 1990, which is exactly when we came to Sugar Land, was February of 1990, with special interest in internal medicine and oncology. He was a member of the Texas and American Veterinary Medical Associations, the Fort Bend and Harris County's Veterinarian Medical Associations, and the American College of Veterinary Emergency Critical Care. He and his staff at the Sugar Creek Animal Clinic have worked hard to provide the highest quality of personalized care and a variety of veterinary medical services to every patient that walks through his door. Dr. Cox has served on the Animal Advisory Board for the City of Sugar Land for 26 years, and as chair has been instrumental in leading the board through many changes over the year, including the first indoor animal shelter in 2008, an animal shelter expansion study in 2016, resulting in expansion options and recommendations for interim improvements to the existing shelter, an expansion of the current shelter after the annexation of Greatwood and New Territory, increasing floor space by 36%, and approval in 2019 by the Sugar Land voters of $6.6 million to fund the design and construction of a new animal shelter to address projected growth through 2030 and house a total of 70 dogs and 132 cats at any given time. Dr. Cox, we've known you as a loyal contributor to the city of Sugar Land. We've known you as a friend. We'll continue to know you as a friend. We wish you all the best in the rest of your career with Sugar Creek Animal Clinic. And Dawn, would you like to say a few words? Put you on the spot, I know.
You did, and you stole my thunder with reading some of that I provided as well. So Dr. Cox has been here for 26 years. You have been a staple on our board. You've been on this board since I started here at the city, and you've helped and been a guiding light for us as we've changed and grown, and we truly appreciate you. I'm going to miss you.
Do you have any of your folks here tonight?
Yeah, no.
Okay. The board members? Oh, yeah, come on, please. The board members, please come down. You guys have worked with Dr. Cox.
Yeah, they deserve the recognition.
Yeah, I'd have to put up with you. Would you all like to say a few words?
I began working on the Animal Services Board when I knew so little that I wondered if I was contributing anything useful. And Dr. Cox has mentored a learning that has gone on since 2009, 2010 or so. And he's one of the finest people I've ever worked with. Thank you so much.
I'm really speaking in behalf of the animals that we have helped through the years with the guidance of Dr. Cox. A lot of us are in rescue, a lot of us are breeding supporters, and had it not been for his quality and his stamina and his love for the animals and direction that he gave the board, we would not be as successful as we are today. On behalf of all the animals, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all saving all of our lives and directing us into the future. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Council, Mike, Meredith, can y'all please come down? Let's get some pictures. This is for anybody that would like to talk about one of the agenda items that is not having a separate public hearing. So at this time, one of the agenda items that is not a separate public hearing, I suspect many of you are here for LakePoint. That is a separate public hearing. Robin, do we have anybody signed up? Okay. We're going to move on to item number 4, consent agenda. We're going to pull 2 items. We're going to pull 4C and we're going to pull 4L. And at this time, we're going to go ahead and take action on A and B, D through K, and M.
Motion approved.
Got a motion by Kermali. Do I have a second? Second by McCutcheon. Vote this time, please. Have to do a hand vote. Mine didn't come up. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. We've got, that's a 7-0 vote. Thank you, council members. We'll fix it later. Item number 4C. Consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Resolution number 2339, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, determining that the construction manager at risk procurement method provides the best value for the construction of a new emergency operations and dispatch center. And we've got with us Lane Wolf, our senior manager of vertical construction. Lane?
Yes, sir, Mayor. I've got a few points I'd like to touch on just to give an overall preview of the CMAR process. So basically the city has 3 delivery systems that we utilize. There's more, but these are the most common. Design bid build, that's your typical program. That's a qualified low bid that you see frequently. Number 2 is a competitive sealed proposal. This is the RFP grading criteria followed by interviews. You will see, I'm going to be doing a presentation here in just a minute that goes into more detail on competitive sealed proposal, and then the construction manager at risk. So what is a CMAR? Selection is through the RFP process, similar to the competitive sealed proposal, grading criteria, and followed up with interviews. The CM is brought in during the design process to assist with the design process. This contract would be for pre-construction services. This is what kind of differentiates from regular construction, where the architect goes through the design process, we bid it out, and then the construction team comes on. What we're doing here is we're hiring the construction team early to work side by side with the architect. The CM provides input on constructability, estimating, supply chain, and schedule. As the architect designs, the CM provides their input. As the design nears completion, the CM will issue a guaranteed maximum price, a GMP. The city will then issue a second contract with the CM for the construction based off of this GMP. So why CMAR on this project? The design of this project will exceed that of what you find in standard commercial construction. Most projects are designed to meet code. We plan on designing above code. For example, wind loads should be designed in our local area to maintain 110 mile per hour, 3-second gust. What we're doing is building a hardened facility that goes beyond that to be able to keep our EOC and dispatch safe during inclement weather, say a Category 4, Category 5 hurricane. We will be looking at a number of factors to strengthen the building, such as the overall structural integrity, exterior walls, roofing assembly, windows, and various site elements. The CM will provide input on each of these items to ensure we get the best hardened facility for the cost. So what's important here is we're just working together as the architect is designing the project. We have the CM that's sitting side by side with them, and as they're looking at different construction methods, means and methods, they're providing live cost as we're going through the entire project. What this should do is help us reduce our schedule and provide a better facility at the end. So the city's used the CMAR delivery on several facilities in the past. This building, as a matter of fact, was a CM at risk building. The airport terminal building was also CM at risk. Surface water treatment plant and the Smart Financial Center were all done as CM at risk. So it's something that we have have experience with. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Lane on the construction manager at risk? I'll make the motion to approve, Lane. Second. Got a motion, I've got a second. Any other discussion? You vote at this time, please.
This is the only one not coming up.
There we go. And we've got a 7-0 vote. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Helps when you're on the right date. At this time, I'm going to recuse myself for item number L. The Mayor Pro Tem will lead the item through the agenda.
All right, item 4L, consideration of and action on an authorization of amendment number 1 to the reimbursement agreement with John S. Beeson, the trustee, for improvements associated with the park at Eldridge Public Improvement District. And we have Lisa here if anyone has any questions, but do I have a motion? Motion to approve. I've got a motion by Watley and a second. Second. Second by Lane. Let's vote. And it passes 6-0. Robin, can you get the mayor? You can get the mayor. Thank you, council.
We're going to move on to item number 5A, consideration and action on authorization of a contract with Bass Construction Company, Inc. in the amount of $8,015,000 for construction of public safety training facility, Phase 2, CIP, CMU 2204. We've got Lane Wolf. Lane?
Yes, sir. We will jump right into a little bit of background. So Phase 1 included the interim shooting range, concrete access roads, fire training prop, and miscellaneous upgrades. 2019, the GEO bond, we received funding CMU 2204 for Phase 2. This includes the interior shoot house and fire apparatus bay. May 3rd, we started the design contract and with Martinez Architects. May 2nd, I provided a design update to council. So here's a map reinforcing location. So at the bottom you see the existing interim gun range. Up the top right is the fire training prop that's existing, and in the shaded area is the project location. Here's the architect's site plan showing the actual layout of the building and the associated parking. There's an aerial rendering of the facility. Ground level rendering, and the floor plan. So you can see on the left-hand side of the building, there's a blue dash line going around. This is the interior shoot house for the police department and the associated workroom and secure holding for all the weapons. The dash line that you see on the right of the building is for the fire department. That's their apparatus bay, workshop, and interior training room, identified as a romper room. You've got 2 classrooms with a dividing wall in the middle, so we can make it into one large classroom, and then a break room and restroom facilities. This is just the second floor showing the mezzanine level for the technical training, AV control and storage area, and some mechanical spaces for the fire training portion of the building. So the bidding process for this was a competitive sealed proposal. It advertised 2 times on August 30th, September 6th. Proposals were due on September 28th. We had 6 proposals overall. They were evaluated and scored by the stakeholders, police department and the fire department. Stakeholders were shortlisted 3 contractors for interviews, and the interviews were conducted on the 2nd week of October 2023. Here you have the proposal grading criteria, pricing 40%, project management 20%, and so on, totaling 100%. The contractor selection, we had 6 contractors, as I stated, shortlisted to 3, they're in yellow, and Bass Construction was selected as the qualified best option for the job. Bass Construction is a local company here in Rosenberg. They built the Public Works Administration building a few years back, and they've worked extensively with the county. GEO bond funds were $10 million. The design firm contract was over $727,000. Construction budget for this project was $8,500,000. If you remember back when I gave the project update, there was a lot of talk about value engineering this project from the very get-go, having 2 separate buildings, making them into one, and doing extensive estimating procedures on the architect side, plus I went out to a third-party estimating firm. We combined those numbers. Sometimes we took the average, sometimes we took the higher number for unknowns, and all that extra work paid out because we came in under budget, $8,015,000. Outstanding items with the remaining funds are the contingency, material testing, AV and audio systems. I'll be working with IT on that. Security and access control for the building, and the FF&E. And with that, we have the request for approval. The engineering, police, and fire departments recommend the City Council approve AIA construction contract with Bass Construction Company, Inc. for the construction of the Public Safety Training Facility, Phase 2, CIP, CMU 2204, in the amount of $8,015,000.
Questions, council members? Suzanne?
Thank you. Lane, we talked about this a while back as you spoke about. Can you just tell us kind of what will be happening at the facility for the sake of understanding more what the facility does and provides for the city?
For the police department, it'll provide an opportunity for training with simunitions and doing live fire training scenarios. They have movable walls in there where they can video, they can do drills, they can do hostage situations, a little bit of everything in there. On the fire department side, they have, 6 bays for apparatus to store additional equipment there. They can also work on the equipment and do training exercises in there. We have a workshop on the end so that they can do repairs on equipment. And they have a romper room, which is where they do their interior training. If, for instance, there's weather issues outside, they can come inside and do training drills. We also provided the 2 classrooms, or 1 large classroom, so that they have an area where they can do classroom type training in there as well.
Thank you. I think that's important that we know what the facility is used for because it has so many aspects of use. And with that, I would like to make a motion to approve.
Got a motion by Watley. Do I have a second? Got a second by McCutcheon. Lane, I'd like to say you guys you and your team did an extraordinary job. I know with construction prices the way they are and the way they've escalated, to come in under budget, to be able to combine that and still keep it under budget, I think is pretty extraordinary. So, you know, kudos to you and your team for bringing this in under budget, and we look forward to getting it up and functional.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council.
Got a second by McCutcheon. Any other questions? Vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, Lane. Item number 5B, consideration of an action on authorization of a development agreement with Pulte Homes of Texas LP for a proposed development in the city of Sugar Land extraterritorial jurisdiction. We have with us tonight Lisa Kosich-Meyer, our Director of Planning and Development Services.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Are you tired yet?
Having
I bet
fun,
you
having
are.
fun. This has all been great. So for you this evening, we will be walking through the background, give you some context of why we are before you this evening with the development agreement, touch on all of the aspects of the development agreement and a series of exhibit agreements that are also attached. We went on a tour, want to recap that. Our developer also wants to provide you some comments, and then we're going to walk through the recommendation and next steps. Before I get started, I do have some special introductions. We do have a team here from Pulte and Taylor Morrison that we have been working with, and so I want to introduce all of them. So we have Lindy Oliva. She is the division president with Pulte. We have also with Pulte, we have Richard Mark, Connor Young, Brian Williams, Monique Garavito. She's here. No, she's not here. Okay. And Brian Hahn. And then from the Taylor Morrison team, we have Richard Batista, Kyle McAndrews, Michael Moyer, and Todd Rasmussen. We are happy that they are all here. And I also want to I want to recap all of the team that we had on the city side. Over the last 3 months, we've had no short of 25 people that have been working on this day in and day out, sometimes evenings, sometimes weekends, to get us here to this point. So we've had staff from our public works team, fire, police, engineering, parks and recreation, our legal team, budget and strategy, planning development services, and then our ACM and executive team as well. So all hands on deck, working hand in hand with the developer to get to this point this evening. So we wouldn't be here without all of them working together. So, okay, I'm just gonna use this. Maybe. There we go. Okay. So, a little bit of background. So, Pulte Homes approached the city in mid-August and let us know that they were working through a purchase of approximately 958 acres. Some of it is located within our ETJ, primarily located south of FM 2759 and east of FM 762. Again, the property, all 958 acres, spanning a variety or a few different jurisdictions, with a portion being within the city's ETJ. They were pretty upfront and said, hey, we can do this project not in the city of Sugar Land or not in the ETJ of any jurisdiction, but we really desire to be part of Sugar Land's ETJ and the future of Sugar Land. Also, a part of this is the reality of new state law changes. This year, the Texas legislature really expanded property owner rights and their ability to pick and choose which jurisdiction they would want to be in. So really that's opened up a lot of opportunities and created really a new world for ETJ development. One that will really require developers, property owners, municipalities, really to work together to find mutual benefits for projects going forward, or development's going to look pretty different going forward. Really, from the city side, it was an opportunity for us to address utility planning needs south of the Brazos. If you recall, when we adopted our water and wastewater master plans last year, it set a policy that we wanted to be the regional provider for utilities within our jurisdiction and in our ETJ. So this was really an opportunity to bring that to the forefront and make that a reality. It's also an opportunity for us to extend and build on the Sugar Land brand and the services reputation that we provide. So all of this really necessitated a development agreement to document specific obligations, commitments for developing this property going forward. So here is a map. Just to orient you, here is the Great Wood community, which is part of our city limits. This is Crab River Road, also known as FM 2759, and then FM 2762, which comes here and then crosses down this area. So the area in red is the general outline of the subject property that the developer is interested in purchasing and moving forward with the development. You can see also some of these lines here attempt to show the current mix, hodgepodge, I guess, if you will, of all of the jurisdictions that are within this property. So some that is within the city's ETJ, portion that is also unincorporated of Fort Bend County. Primarily, all of this is Thompson's ETJ. And there's also a small portion, roughly 16 acres, that is in the corporate limits of the city of Rosenberg. Okay, so these are kind of a heads up on all the slides that we're going to be walking through. These are all the different components of the development agreement that are before you this evening. General plan and land uses, touching on density and some development standards, design and construction standards, how utilities will be provided to the site, meeting parkland dedication requirements, road facilities, the creation of a municipal utility district to serve the property as well, touching on aspects of the ETJ and how it will be brought in and out, future annexation into the corporate limits, and then public safety services. So this is the general plan that is an exhibit to the agreement. Through the development agreement, it establishes the different uses that will be developed on the property. As you can tell by the yellow on the map, it will primarily be single-family residential. In the kind of center here in the brighter yellow, that will include a Del Webb portion of the property. So this is a 55-plus age-restricted single-family area within the development. The map also provides for park and recreational facilities shown in green, and then some of the purple, which are some of the amenities that will be available. Also want to touch on this property here, which is currently in the city's ETJ. We're referring to it as the Flex Track. It will primarily be commercial uses that would be in alignment with our B1 neighborhood business zoning requirements. There are a few exceptions to particular uses that would not be allowed. Also allowed on this site would be some limited warehousing with office, the ability to do some independent senior living as long as it complies with our zoning requirements and criteria to be considered independent senior living. There would also be a cap on the maximum number of units at 200. Also allowing for some medium density single family to provide some variety. So townhomes, maybe some cottage court defined later, that would also be allowed within this flex track. Between the independent senior living and the medium density, that would be capped at a maximum of 30 acres for this overall site, which is roughly about 60 acres. So still allowing for some commercial retail office to be developed on the site. Also on the map, there is a minimum requirement to have a 50-foot landscape buffer here along the railroad in this area. In addition, the development agreement also provides some limited allowances for deviations from some of our development standards related to length of cul-de-sac, some signage deviations for some of their Del Webb portion of their signs, to name a few. The development agreement also outlines some terms for amendments to the general plan, so the map that we just looked through, without city approval under certain criteria. So as long as land uses don't change, there's some allowances for some minimum sizing requirements that could change and shift for some of the pods that we kind of looked at for the different types of land uses. And as long as the thoroughfare plan that is shown on the map doesn't deviate generally, there could be some minor shifts that could be allowed without any prior approval from the city. So to move along to density, as part of the agreement, there are also some maximums that are set for single family and commercial. So a maximum of 2,650 single family units would be capped for this development, as well as a maximum of 60 acres for commercial. In the agreement, it also establishes minimum lot sizes and standards for a variety of single family lot types that they envision to be part of the property. There are also some minimum guidelines for single-family residential, building finishes and materials, to name one. All right, and so as I mentioned, utilities and the opportunities for us to build on the policy direction that we have from our water and wastewater master plan was one of the benefits in moving forward with this development. So the intent is that there would be regional public utilities provided to serve this property. The city would be a retail provider for there we go. So the city would be a retail provider for water, wastewater, reclaimed water supply services. Ratepayers would pay the same retail rates that our in-city customers would pay. There's also provisions for the allowance of irrigation wells to be constructed, as long as those comply with all of our code of ordinance requirements, and the MUDs that would construct those wells would join our GRP. The city, the developer will be designing all of the regional improvements, and the city will be covering those reimbursement costs for the design fees. And then ultimately the city will fund all the construction of the regional improvements that we'll step through in a bit. Also, the developer, as the property is developed at platting, will pay a connection fee, and this covers the pro rata share of the regional improvements. So that connection fee is calculated based on the capital costs of all of the regional wastewater and water treatment plants that will be needed to serve both this site as well as the future developments in our ETJ. So as part of this agreement, and as part of, I mentioned there are a series of exhibit agreements that are also attached. One of them is the services agreement for utilities, and it really outlines the detailed terms for the provision of utilities, water, wastewater, reclaimed water supply services to the property from the city. So it really steps through all of the construction of the regional improvements from a time frame of the time frames, capacity sizing, responsibilities for who's doing design, the contract bidding and awarding, management of the actual construction, and the financial obligations, which will be that of the city. Also, it covers interim services and facilities that would be in place while these regional improvements are being constructed. There's some requirements or some allowances for some interim services to serve the property. The plant facilities ultimately will be owned and operated by the city after they are completed. As you may recall, in November, you approved an assignment of a purchase contract for property, which is in our ETJ currently, and this would be the location, the site for those regional improvements, the regional plant that would be constructed to serve both this property and the rest of our ETJ. We do anticipate closing on that property by the end of December of this year. Okay. Another opportunity through a development agreement with property in our ETJ is the opportunity for the city to establish design and construction standards. In this case, the developer is agreeing to comply with several chapters of our development code for private improvements, and that includes both our building codes, which are found in Chapter 7 of the development code, as for residential and non-residential development. Likewise, for non-residential signage, compliance with our sign regulations in Chapter 4 of the development code. All the public infrastructure will be constructed and designed to our city standards. This will be infrastructure that we inherit through this development. So of course we want it to be designed and constructed to our standards. We've worked out inspection provisions for the public infrastructure. So inspection costs will be billed on an hourly basis in accordance with a specific fee schedule that has been set per this agreement. And those costs are to cover time and materials, so direct costs for inspecting the infrastructure within the development. So as I mentioned, there are parkland dedication requirements. When property is subdivided in the city or the ETJ, there are parkland dedication requirements so that there is a provision of public and open space to be provided to serve residents in that development. In this agreement, what we have outlined is the developer has agreed to provide 17.5 acres of private parks and recreational facilities to meet at least a maximum of 50% of the dedication requirements. So this includes neighborhood parks, amenity centers that will be specifically dedicated and used for the residents within this community, or this neighborhood. And then 9.5 acres of publicly accessible open space along the creek that runs through this property. The developer has additionally agreed to construct a minimum of 50 public parking spaces adjacent to the open space so that people can actually access the property and use it, as well as constructing some recreational amenities within that space. So the park facilities will ultimately be owned and maintained by the HOA and the district, so would not become a responsibility of the city. So to touch on road facilities, there'll be a thoroughfare system to and through the property that meets or exceeds our standards and regulations. If you recall looking at the map, there is major thoroughfares consisting of a loop road that would connect to FM 762 and loop through the property. There would also be the future extension of Reading Road through the property, which is a county road. There are also triggers for future TIA, traffic impact analysis, to determine if there's any roadway improvements outside of the boundaries of this development that would be necessitated by the development. There's also within the Del Webb specific area of the project would be the allowance for private streets to serve that area. But of course, they would also all need to be constructed to city standards for the requirements. Okay, so in order to serve the site, the developer intends to create municipal utility districts. The developer, in doing so, will submit a petition to the city to seek consent, and the city, through this agreement, is consenting to approve that the creation of districts moving forward. These will be future actions for the city to take, but the establishment of the expectation is through this development agreement. The city also agrees that if there are any participant MUDs that would be created, we would also consent to those, but no more than 4 MUDs would be created to serve this overall property. There are also some specific parameters for the issuance of bonds that are included in the consent resolution that's attached to this agreement. So if a MUD does not meet those, then they must move forward and come forward to the City Council for approval of bond issues in the future. Okay, to touch on some of the specifics related to the ETA components of this and withdrawal and annexation. So the developer, as I mentioned, again, there are multiple jurisdictions, so the developer is agreeing to file a petition to request withdrawal of the portion of the Thompson's ETJ, within 30 days of closing on the property. And again, this petition, form petition, is attached as Exhibit M to the agreement. The city is also accepting this development agreement as their official petition that they want to be brought into the City of Sugar Land's ETJ. So there are some timeframes associated with the adoption of an ordinance. That will be a future action for City Council to take. But again, that resolution, that ordinance is attached and will be brought forward for you for later action. They also further agree that they will not attempt or petition to move out of the city's ETJ once they are brought in. So related to future annexation, so this is annexation into the city's corporate limits, city limits. There's a strategic partnership agreement, and that's the vehicle for establishing the services and terms for future annexation into the city limits. As part of that, there are some specific requirements or triggers that would have to be met in order for us to move forward with actual annexation. So they wouldn't be eligible for annexation until 1 year after at least 90% of the property has been developed with water, wastewater, drainage, and road facilities, and the district has reimbursed the developer to the maximum extent allowable, or the city makes a decision to assume the obligation of reimbursing the developer. So both of those have to be met, and we have to give them a 1 year notice, essentially, that we would be moving forward with annexation. The strategic partnership agreement also outlines that after annexation, the district would exist as a limited district for limited reasons for no less than 90 days, but no longer than 10 years. And of course, the city would have the decision on the actual dissolution of the district within these parameters, the no less than 90 days and no more than 10 years. Additionally, there are provisions in the strategic partnership agreement that would allow the city to annex mainly the flex tract, which would have the opportunity to actually have uses on it that collects sales and use tax, so that the city would have the opportunity to annex that property for limited purposes of the collection of sale and use taxes within that property. This would require an adoption of an ordinance at a later date by the city if that decision is made. The strategic partnership agreement also outlines that the city may deposit any revenues we collect from that limited purpose annexation area into a debt reduction fund. This is something that has been set up in the past for other districts. Money that is deposited into the debt reduction fund can be used for costs associated with the full purpose annexation of the area into the city at a later time. And as I mentioned, the strategic partnership agreement is another example of one of the attached exhibit agreements that will be entered into with the MUD at a later date once it's created and established. Public safety services, so that is another element that the developer was interested in receiving a city service as part of this development. They are required to adopt a fire plan. The district is required to adopt a fire plan and contract with the city for those services. So for the provision of fire protection and emergency medical services, there would be collection of fees for those services, and they are also contributing a pro rata funding to a cost of the construction of a future public safety facility within the development. There's also provisions for interim service. So before that fire plan is established, before we enter into those contracts with the district directly, there would be interim services that are provided by the city, both fire protection and emergency medical services. There would be a fee that would be charged in accordance with our city's code of ordinances, which are equal to the full cost of service plus a 20% out of city service charge. In the future, the district may decide to contract or provide police services themselves, so they can contract with other agencies, including potentially the city of Sugar Land, for those services, or they may decide to move forward with providing those services as they are allowed to by law. Additionally, they are dedicating a minimum of a 2-acre site for the construction of a future public safety site. Again, a fire protection plan is attached as Exhibit G to the agreement. It outlines the payment, the details related to the payment of the station fee, payment for those services, the fire and emergency medical services. Those services will be billed monthly at the time of connection to the city's water service. The plan also includes triggers for the city starting design and construction of a station in the future. There are also some miscellaneous provisions, as I call them, related to this development. So that includes the use of Sugarland when they are marketing, branding the development, also potentially using it in their signage. And as I mentioned, there is a portion of the property that they are purchasing that is within the corporate limits of the city of Rosenberg. And we just wanted to make it specifically clear that both, as you can maybe tell from the land plan, that no residential or commercial development is intended for that tract. A portion of it actually will be taken up by the future Grand Parkway extension and the right-of-way associated with that. Additionally, because Rosenberg is another entity, nothing within this agreement is subject, or that development or that property is not subject to the terms of this agreement. So they're not intended to be included in the boundaries of the MUD. None of the requirements that are associated with this agreement apply to that property. But again, it is not envisioned to have any development on that site. Okay, so that is highlights of the agreement and all of the associated exhibit agreements. Wanted to touch on a tour that Pulte and Taylor Morrison were very gracious in hosting us and about 5 or 6 staff. We went out in mid-November, really wanted to, they wanted to show off the developments that they have, products, types that they are planning to incorporate or to have as part of their development. So we went to Ellerden, Trillium, Bridge Creek, and a Del Webb project that they have out in Fulshire. So just to buzz through a couple of the photos. So this was Ellerden. This was some of the Pulte home products that they have, which I believe was out in the Tomball area. Some of the Taylor Morrison products, I believe this was, forgive me if I'm wrong. Let's see, this was probably, yes, Trillium, sorry, which was in the Richmond area. Del Webb, which is out in Fulshire, which is a newer development, which is under construction. And just to kind of give you a flavor of some of the development styles, here's their amenity center, which is under construction in Fulshire, but just to give you an idea of the amenities that they include as part of their developments. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Lindy and to Richard, and I believe they wanted to have a couple remarks, kind of talk to you about Pulte and their company and the vision they have for this project.
Welcome. Thank you for having us here. We appreciate it. We're excited to talk about this opportunity with the City of Sugar Land. I'll give you a little backdrop on Pulte Group and who we are, but I also want to talk a little bit about why we reached out to the City of Sugar Land, and it goes into who we are at Pulte. As you guys know, Senate Bill 2038 this year had a big impact on development, and our personality as a company is to reach out and work with our partners, and that was the approach we took with the City of Sugar Land. So the tour on the 13th, we appreciate the time of city staff to tour with us. Talking a little bit about Pulte Group. Pulte Group is the 3rd largest builder in the United States, but we have a family of brands that we build under. Pulte Homes is what actually started the company. And Pulte Homes was founded by our founder, Bill Pulte, back in 1950, and in Detroit, Michigan, where he actually started with a couple of friends and $10,000, and they built a house. And that turned into what is now the 3rd largest builder in the company. We have acquired brands throughout time. In the year 2000, we acquired Del Webb. Del Webb was known as the largest, he was actually a large commercial contractor. He built casinos in Vegas, and then somehow he went from that to building active adult communities. And so our Del Webb brand as well, we'll talk about today what that stands for and what our intent is. We have a lot of homes within the United States. We build in approximately 30 markets today. We've built over 750,000 homes. And Pulte, you know, our purpose and our mission statement is building incredible places where people can live their dreams. And that is honestly what we carry in our culture here in our Houston division, as well as in the entire company. So as we looked at this property, we took a look at how can we make this place better than the site it is today, and a place that people will come out and want to live. And that included some opportunities to use Sugar Land as a part of our marketing, because we know how much people want to live within the city of Sugar Land, which is very, even though it's the ETJ, but it's very different than saying, I'm in an unincorporated area and I have no affiliation. And so that was a big purpose in what we were trying to accomplish with this project. As we look at the project, we're also talking about, as I mentioned, Del Webb. We built a Del Webb in the city of Richmond. Del Webb Sweetgrass is actually right across the freeway from this site. Sweetgrass has about 1,500 homes in it upon completion. This Del Webb will be a little bit smaller, a little more of a boutique, and similar to what we're doing in our Fulshire market today. A Del Webb community is targeted to 55 and over, or 55 and better residents. It is a very much age restricted, and in this particular location, we are desiring to gate the community, thus the private streets, to provide for a little more safety for the residents that are 55 and over, who look at for that specifically in their home. The Del Webb communities are a lifestyle community, so they are targeted to giving people that stage of life that's next when the kids are all gone, and I'm looking for people with similar interests. So if you get out to our Del Webb Fulshire, what you'll see out there today is we have about an 18,000 square foot amenity building under construction. That amenity building has an indoor pool, it has fitness facilities, it has arts and crafts rooms, fitness rooms, it has ballrooms. In addition to that, we have outdoor pool, we have pickleball courts, we have a 9-hole putting green as well. It's really kind of more of a game for our residents than anything, but the community is all about lifestyle. We also have a garden area where our residents gather. And so what our Del Webb is really intended to do is drive a place for people who want to live close to their family and friends, but they don't really want their neighbors' tricycles in the driveway. So that's kind of the purpose of our Del Webb component of this community as well. A little bit more about Pulte. You know, we've built over 22,000 homes within the Houston market. We've developed over 6,000 lots just in the last 5 years. We currently have a little over 11,000 lots under control, and we have about $830 million we've invested in this market. This acquisition is also a very large investment, and it's another step we're taking into what we believe is providing quality housing to the Houston area. I am also proud to say that we are amongst the top in our company. We are graded, all of our divisions across the company are graded on our build quality and our customer experience. And I am proud to say of 30 divisions, we rank #1 in both our build quality and our customer experience, and have been in that position for over the last 5 years. So customer experience matters to us, the quality of our developments matter to us, and we're very responsive to customers when they reach out. So I'll pause with that and ask if you have any questions on just vision for the development or.
Well, I actually have a lot of questions. I personally live in Greatwood, and there's going to be 1,000 questions that come out now that this is public. I want them to, and this may not be directed at you necessarily, but I want everyone to fully understand what ETJ really is, because I believe a lot of the people that live out in that area are going to go, oh, how does this affect me? And are the residents of this new community going to get more than we get? Do they vote? Where are their children going to go to school? Right now, the school district is already looking at moving where the children are currently going to school, or students are currently going to school, and that has upset a lot of people. So this really is going to be, they're going to be hypersensitive to this. As good as it may be for our utility expansion and everything, I don't know if they're all going to fully understand. So my main question would be to our team or whomever, what does this ETJ neighbor mean to our city residents in that area? How does this affect them? And does the ETJ services affect their services? If so, how? I have 1,000 questions.
Sure, absolutely. I'll address this right now. I do have a couple more slides, I think, but I'll jump into it right now. So ETJ stands for extraterritorial jurisdiction. That is an area that is established by state law, which is kind of a buffer area around a city's corporate limits. It allows a city to plan for that area in terms of future annexation into the corporate limits. Excuse me. There are limitations, however, though, on what a city can do in terms of regulations within an ETJ. It's very limited, in fact. We can't extend our zoning and land use regulations. We do not provide services to those areas unless, through our development code, we have the ability to enter into a development agreement. So those developments in the ETJ can move forward. They do have to comply with some of our subdivision regulations, but that's not to the extent, again, of land use control, land use regulation. So in terms of the services, the residents of this area will be provided water, wastewater services, fire, EMS services, but those are paying for those services, so they do not impact current residents within the city. They will be paying their share there for those services that they receive.
So as a follow-up, if I may.
Follow.
So the emergency services they would receive, if I understood, and I just want everyone that's listening for the first time to this, because this is a big deal. It's big for Sugar Land, it's big for everybody. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So when and if they're going to receive fire and EMS services?
Correct.
But they're going to receive those services as a ratepayer, essentially, correct?
And they will pay actually a additional amount, a surcharge, if you will, for being not within the city's city limits.
Yeah,
so
and you
20%.
You mentioned that would be 20% on top of what the service would cost, correct?
Mm-hmm, correct.
So if there were units needed for that area, it wouldn't be incorporated citizen residents paying for that. It would be our new neighbors in the ETJ paying for that.
That is correct.
Okay. So police services, no, that would be the county services?
For now, that's correct.
For now, okay. So I was following along, 90% of the utility development will trigger or could trigger desire for annexation. Did I read that correctly?
So those were some of the triggers for the city being able to consider moving or annexing the property in. So yes, 90% of the development acreage has to be developed and have access to water, wastewater, roads, drainage improvements, and the developer has to be reimbursed up to for anything that they are allowed to be reimbursed for. Or the city makes the decision that we assume that obligation. So.
Sorry, Mayor, just a couple more. Sure. I'm into social media, so the rumor mill right now, I can hear it. It's just turning, and so I'm trying to put a stop to some of that.
What? Sure.
So police, no.
Correct.
It'll be county for now. Annexation, maybe one day.
One day, right.
One day.
Potentially. It's a decision of the city council at that time. Yep.
Perfect. Fire and EMS services will come as ratepayer services with an additional 20%-ish. Traffic, they're going to all be talking about traffic. I certainly know what it's like right now for the students, the young people coming out of Greatwood trying to get to George Ranch, for example. It's a nightmare there. So I can almost say, are they going to build a bridge? Are they going to do a crossing over the railroad? What's going to happen? So I know that's all down the road, but I didn't know if any of that was sort of, we can inject it into their knowledge now.
Sure. So what I could say, and what the development agreement outlines, is that there would be opportunities to look at traffic in the future. There are requirements for additional TIAs to look at if there are any improvements to the roadway system around the development that would be necessitated. Thank you. By this development in particular. So we do have the opportunity to look at that again in the future for more decision making.
So last question, I think. until it goes around. Last question. You were talking about this new wastewater treatment, surface water treatment, but on the map, I didn't see where that may or may not be located. That may be something people would be interested in knowing where that's at, and I'll let it go. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. The property is located on 2759, so to the north of FM 2759. It's roughly a 45 to 50 acre property to the east of Greatwood Lake subdivision right now.
I know.
So this is the property that council approved the assignment of contract on to purchase and move forward with at your November meeting.
Thank you.
Lindy, what may help? What's your build-out projection, or Richard, from the time that you're going to close this year? You're probably going to start construction pretty close.
Yeah, we plan on having lots on the ground.
Richard, why don't you go ahead and step up the mic?
Yeah, we plan on having lots on the ground by, I guess, mid-June 25, with closings happening into that year. And we're projecting, I know we're projecting higher. What I gave Lisa was 400 a year. And that's between Del Webb, the Pulte product, and Taylor Morrison. We feel like the market can handle that. It's our pricing. I don't know if anybody's asked that, but you know, we're looking at 1.2 billion of value being created. That's an average sales price of about a little over 520,000 a house.
Yeah,
on average.
probably 7 to 8 years is built out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's got to go fast.
I would say 7 years is a good estimate. It may
Okay.
run a little longer than that, depending on market cycles, but 7 years is a fair estimate.
Okay, does that help, William?
Okay.
Other council members?
Any other specific Pulte, Del Webb? Yes, sir. No.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
That's a question for Lisa. I noticed on here there's a 100-foot right-of-way collector roadway going through the development. Would that eventually connect to Royal Lakes and provide an outlet for Royal Lakes as well?
Yeah, yes, you are correct. That's the extension of Reading Road. So connecting from 762 through the property into the Royal Lake subdivision.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. You know, Lisa, and I'll address both you and Pulte. I think this has been an extraordinary effort on both sides. Lisa, would you have your staff stand that's been involved in this? Because it's been an extraordinary effort with a lot of folks. Please, stand. You've been involved in doing some of the pricing. Come on. Don't be shy. How should I say? There haven't been any 8-hour days probably on either side. Richard, I've known you for a lot of years, and Lindy, you got the best land development guy that I know of in the business, and I worked with him for a long time. So kudos to you guys for putting him on your team. Thank you for an extraordinary effort. This might be the only time that the state of Texas has helped the city of Sugar Land with something, giving us the option of having you guys, you know, become part of Sugar Land, so that everybody knows. It was important to Mike, our city manager, Mike Goodrum. It was important to me and our council. We reached out to the town of Thompsons. Mike met with the town of Thompsons. He outlined the request from Pulte. I think they received it well. I met with the town of Thompsons with Mike. They recognized that they wouldn't be able to, they're so small that they wouldn't be able to provide the level of service that we did. And ultimately, they wished us well and said, we hope that maybe there's something else down the road that Pulte could help us with, or the city of Sugar Land. So, you know, I think it's been an extraordinary effort. We look forward to having you all as a partner, and all the best with the closing. It's not too many days down the road now, is it?
It's not. It's right upon us.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
I'll make the motion to approve. You got a second by Lane.
Would you let them finish the presentation?
Oh,
I
sure.
just have-
I didn't know we had another
one more
presentation.
It's okay.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I love the eagerness. It's great. It's great. The energy is wonderful. One thing though, I am very I made a mistake. I did not recognize Julianne Kugel with SK Law. She has been a integral part of the developers team.
Oh, she's over there. I can't see her.
She's right there. Yes.
She's behind the panel.
She was on my list, but I skipped over and I apologize. But yeah, she has been an integral part of all of this as well. And so it's been great to work with her as well. So with that, we are recommending approval of the authorization of this development agreement with Pulte Homes. That you see there on the screen are all of the exhibit attachments to this agreement. Some of them that have the asterisks next to them will require future action by the developer, the district, and even the City of Sugar Land City Council. So this is kind of the development agreement as a framework, and then there are actions that will come forward as the district is created and as the development continues. We also visited with, throughout the negotiations with both the IG, Intergovernmental Relations Subcommittee, as well as the Finance Audit Subcommittee. So with that, that is staff recommendation. Happy to take any additional questions.
Okay, we've got a motion. We've got a second. Any additional questions? Your votes this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Lisa, to you and to your team, congratulations. Lindy, to you and your team, congratulations. Look forward to working with you. We're going to move now to item number 6, public hearings. 6A, public hearing, to receive and hear all persons interested in the following. We've got 3 items, and then I'll go over kind of how we're going to catch these items. Item number 1 is proposed land use plan amendments to provide descriptions of the vision for the LakePoint Regional Activity Center and increase anticipated number of multifamily units. Item number 2, proposed development code amendment regarding the establishment of the LakePoint Redevelopment District and proposed rezoning for approximately 69 acres of land located along Creek Bend Drive and Floor Daniel Drive from Planned Development District PD to LakePoint Redevelopment District LPR. Property being further described as all of Tract 6, all of Tract 7, all of Tract 8, and all of the Common Area B out of the Floor Central Development Tract replat number 1, all of Reserve K out of LakePoint Tract C, and all of Reserve F1 out of LakePoint Tract C, replat unrestricted Reserve F, replat located. Item number 3, proposed redevelopment concept plan for LakePoint Plaza, providing the opportunity to evaluate the location of proposed uses and their relationship to the surrounding area to ensure negative impacts are minimized during redevelopment. This is a new process being created by the proposed development code amendment for the LakePoint Redevelopment District per section 2-124. And Ruth, this is unusual. We're going to have a public hearing in a minute. The comment time for public hearing instead of 3 minutes is going to be extended to 5 because we really have three items that we're going to take all at one time. We'll take a motion on them later when we do the action items. They'll be separate items. They'll follow in item in 7. But for right now, this is a public hearing that's going to enjoin all 3 of these items. I'll turn it over to you now, Ruth.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Please apologize my voice. I am getting over an illness, so I'm going to do my best to get through this presentation tonight. As you mentioned, we are here to talk about the redevelopment of LakePoint. I'm going to start with just covering a little bit of background and then talk to you a little bit about those 3 action items related to LakePoint redevelopment. I'm going to cover some public engagement that we've done, and then you'll hold a public hearing. We are going to be asking that you take action on 2 of the 3 items tonight, so only 2 of the 3. But I am going to cover all 3 of them in my presentation because all 3 of them are part of the public hearing. So I will be reminding you of that periodically throughout the presentation just to make sure that it's clear to you and to everyone in the audience. So in 2018, City Council adopted an update to our land use plan, which is a community developed vision for the future of our community. The vision did establish that Sugar Land would develop and redevelop to be a desirable place to be in the future, but it also recognized the need to change in response to market demands. It also recognized our need to shift our focus to redevelopment, realizing that we had very little land left then and even less vacant land now. And so it's critical for us to maintain the long-term fiscal health of our city to really focus on redevelopment. And much of that focus is in our regional and neighborhood activity centers, which were identified in the land use plan and that you can see here on this map. I'll just point out the regional activity centers being the 5 here in the darker red, and then the neighborhood activity centers are in the lighter pink. The plan also directed us to evaluate the best way to implement those regional and neighborhood activity centers from a zoning standpoint. So we worked with a consultant and studied what other communities do to implement redevelopment of mixed-use areas. We did this kind of throughout 21 and 22. Out of that process, there was a recommendation to create 2 new zoning districts, and we worked alongside our consultant and a task force of Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council members to draft those zoning districts, brought them forward to the Commission and Council in July of this year. City Council then directed staff to really focus on the top 2 redevelopment priorities, which are Imperial and LakePoint, and really focus on preparing LakePoint for redevelopment. So since that time, we have held 3 different meetings with the Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss LakePoint redevelopment, including 2 workshops that were in September and October, and then their public hearing and recommendation in November. So looking specifically at LakePoint, the 2018 land use plan did have this as an area of change. We recognize that the Fleur campus as it exists today does offer us a significant opportunity for redevelopment. It's about 52 acres that was developed in the early 1980s and includes some obsolete office buildings that we're finding there's really not a market for today. There's also over 30 acres of surface parking that we believe can be re-envisioned into something greater. The remainder of the activity center was developed in the 2000s, and so we don't anticipate significant redevelopment in the near future. So again, here's Highway 6, Highway 59, just to kind of orient you off of Fleur Daniel Drive. You have the Fleur Corporation campus here, which is the site that is what we're talking about tonight. So we are holding 1 consolidated public hearing for those 3 necessary actions for redevelopment tonight. These are the 3 things that need to take place to prepare LakePoint for redevelopment. We are taking a proactive stance to make this site ready for redevelopment rather than waiting for a developer to come forward and provide a proposal and then taking action afterwards. So the first step is amending the land use plan. You will be holding a first reading tonight on Ordinance 2326, and then we anticipate a second reading to follow at your next meeting on the 19th. We'll also be amending the development code and rezoning the property through Ordinance 2325, also holding that first reading and second reading the same time as the land use plan. And then the redevelopment concept plan, which will just be simply an approval vote. That consideration date has yet to be determined. It could be on the 19th or it could be at a future date. So I'm going to go through each of these action items in a little bit more detail, and then I'll be happy to take some questions a little bit later. So the first action item is amending the land use plan. The land use plan that was adopted in 2018 did include a community vision for the LakePoint area. It designated 444 multifamily units for this specific area. However, it also, as I mentioned, recognized the need for the city to respond to changing market dynamics. As you're aware, there have been some significant market changes since 2018. There's been a major impact on office because of COVID-19. We've also seen impacts to retail, and our demand for housing just continues to increase. As a result, residential is going to occupy more of this site than was originally envisioned, and this both includes the middle housing type as well as multifamily. As a result, there are some changes that are being proposed to the land use plan, including some text changes to reflect the market evolution and vision for the site, as well as increasing the overall number of multifamily units from 444 to 1,100. And then we've modified the land use pie chart, which you can see on the slide here, to be reflective of these changes. The second item is amending the development code to establish the LakePoint redevelopment district and rezoning the property. So as I mentioned, we are going to be amending the development code to create a new zoning district. This does reflect the floor redevelopment as our focus rather than having a more generic district. It will become one of the 18 zoning districts in our development code. The district does set the standards and processes for development in this area and will allow for a mix of uses, focus on the pedestrian experience and such. So I'm just going to kind of walk through a high-level overview of what you'll find in the development code update. So one is allowing for a variety of housing types. So this will allow for some new house scale options to support a greater mix of lifestyles. These allow for density that can be in close, allow for housing to be in close proximity to retail and daily services within walking distance of those residences. These images that you see here are just some examples of what you could potentially see developed in the LakePoint site: duplexes, quadplexes, and sixplexes, which are not currently provided for in our development code. Another element is form standards, such as building setbacks, pedestrian paths, and the location of parking lots, which really prioritize inviting pedestrian-friendly streetscapes in a walkable district, which is distinct from our standard zoning districts. Additionally, we have some form-based standards and parking reductions, which will eliminate excess parking and further reinforce a walkable district by promoting a more efficient land use of land. And then finally, this district will provide for market responsiveness in order to promote incremental redevelopment by providing flexibility for areas to evolve over time and to respond to market changes and pressures. One of the elements that provides for this is the redevelopment concept plan, which is part of the development code. It's established in the code amendment. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute when I start getting into the specific proposed redevelopment concept plan for this particular project. So kind of the second half of the second action is actually rezoning the property. So as I've said in the past, you have to both create a district and then also rezone the property to that new district. And so we are doing a city-initiated rezoning for this property, where we will be applying, or are applying, the new LakePoint redevelopment district to approximately 69 acres. So this includes the existing 52-acre Fleur campus, as well as about 10 acres of adjacent undeveloped property, and then 7 acres of a segment of Creek Bend Drive. So the overall 69 acres is in this kind of greenish, bluish sort of color here. The Fleur campus is the majority of the site, and then the vacant property that's about 10 acres is here, and then there's a few pieces along here as well. So now the third action is to approve a redevelopment concept plan. And as a reminder, you are not taking this action tonight. I'm just covering it because we're going over it. It is part of the public hearing and an opportunity for the public to provide comment on it this evening and for you to talk about it. So as was mentioned, this is a new process that's being created through the development code amendment that's before you this evening. It does provide an opportunity to evaluate the proposed development and its relationship to the surrounding area in order to minimize negative impacts and evaluate the location of proposed uses, connectivity, and location of public spaces. It does, however, allow for flexibility and market changes as the project builds out over many years, and therefore does not include a lot of the level of detail as we're kind of accustomed to and have been shown in PDs in the past. In terms of the approval process, it is a public process, so there is a early community meeting required, which in this case has been complete. There is also a Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing and recommendation, which has also been complete, and then a City Council public hearing and action, which is underway this evening. Future revisions could utilize a joint public hearing to simplify the process, but that's not how we went about it for creating it initially. Also, as just a side note, any substantial changes to this plan would require resubmittal to City Council, and that would include changes such as to the classification of a development area or significant street design or development area changes. So just to go into this a little bit more, what the redevelopment concept plan is not, you're not going to see the exact location of buildings or parking, building orientation or rendering, specific pedestrian amenities, site-specific elements such as connectivity, landscaping. All of these elements are really, the requirements for those are built into the code itself and will be evaluated in future steps. Which the next steps after the redevelopment concept plan would be platting, site planning, building permits, at which time all of that would be reviewed for compliance with the code, whether by the Planning and Zoning Commission or by staff. So these are the elements that are required to be included in the redevelopment concept plan. It has to have an overall property boundary showing the relationship to the adjoining subdivisions, location of the development areas, kind of how it's going to be developed, location of existing and proposed streets, how the land uses are going to be laid out on the site, the total number of multifamily units and their approximate location, and then the location of civic spaces as well. So in order to determine whether the redevelopment concept plan should be approved, the criteria include looking at consistency with the comprehensive plan and other applicable plans, consistency with the purpose, intent, and standards of the development code, and then consideration of the existing roadway network and its impact on surrounding properties. So this is the proposed redevelopment concept plan for LakePoint Plaza that is before you for your review tonight and consideration at a future meeting. So the overall site here is in red. This is I believe it's actually a 64-acre site, which is slightly less than what is being rezoned because they're not including the entire Creek Bend Drive here to the north. You can see here that they do show civic space coming through the site and adjacent to all of the waterways. And then they show the location of their development areas and the streets. Again, kind of going through the site here. The various land uses are designated based on the chart here to the left. For example, the multifamily has an option to be located either here in area number 1, here in area number 3, or here in area number 5, and then I think number 10 is the other one. So 9 and 8 are shown to be middle housing, which is those housing types that fall between kind of our typical single family and typical multifamily. So the duplexes, the triplexes, and fourplexes, some of those house scale type developments that you saw some pictures of earlier. And with that, I'm going to invite Don Jansen to come forward. He's got just a few slides to share with you on the concept for LakePoint.
Thank you, Ruth.
Good evening.
Good evening. How's everyone tonight? So if you could just tell me how does it go this way? Got it. Okay, got it. Should know that by now. But anyway, thank you for your time. Really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to present this. And a little background about us, just real quickly. So we've been developing as Sugar Land Properties and PCD for the past, well, since 1979. Don't do the math, that's 43 years. Lived in Sugar Land for 32 years. I've raised 2 children, have 6 grandchildren. Sugar Land's my home, and I'm very passionate about its future. Let me just say how much I appreciate the city's willingness to reach a little bit and stretch and kind of embrace the future, if you would, for new density ideas. I believe, my personal opinion, it's very critical to Sugar Land's future. Having developed here for so many years, I see this as a new opportunity for the future of Sugar Land. So I'd like to speak to a little bit to the residents in the room. I've heard a lot of them and their concerns, and my message to them is we definitely listen to what they say. As we stated in the recent community meeting held at the Fleur Cafeteria, we want to receive your input and address them in every way possible. Our goal is to take an already successful project and enhance it with additional retail and restaurant concepts, services, and amenities that only better this community. I guess it goes without saying, we're purchasing this property in one of the most challenging real estate markets in history. And as such, we're trying to stay as flexible as possible as we interact with potential owners and tenants. The proposed amendments under consideration tonight are the only reason this plan will work. We'll still work closely with city staff to ensure compliance with all code and ordinances. From a developer perspective, this is not the first challenging project we've had. That would be Sugar Land Town Square as a good example of that. It was very complicated. A lot of people in this room lived through that. But we actually created special zoning district just to be able to make that work. And I think it allowed for the successful completion of that project. So from our company standpoint, we commit to using the same development approach, which incorporates the attention to detail and standards of quality that you can see throughout the First Colony development. As a resident, you have seen firsthand how we approach projects, and LakePoint Plaza will be no different. So in the interest of time, I know you've already seen this presentation, but for people in the audience that maybe haven't seen it, I'm going to go through it quickly. So one of the comments that we've heard is that in Sugar Land, Texas today, only 4% of the land is undeveloped. We're in effect building to meet tomorrow's needs. New projects must be well-planned, maximizing the land while preserving its natural character. New development must embrace density as we now redevelop those unique areas that lend themselves to density. Sugar Land continues to grow, but so do the surrounding communities. Sugar Land must stay competitive by developing well-amenitized areas capable of attracting highly skilled workers and families to support companies. For example, office buildings for tomorrow are not going to look anything like they do today. They're going to need to be located in mixed-use environments where actually employees want to go work. We've seen that in Town Square, and I think that as we add additional office in LakePoint, they're going to love that environment for that purpose. So as we considered our vision, we focused on 4 distinct concepts: unique place with its own identity, preserve and activate the natural beauty, which is the water and the mature trees, create multiple destination venues where people make memories, and welcoming for all age groups. So in effect, we must activate the area and must be vibrant and in constant use. So the goal is a perfect blend of residential and commercial uses that are in a safe, convenient, walkable environment. No destination in LakePoint Plaza will be more than 5 minutes away. So this is the existing plan today. One thing that's never changed over the past 40 years of our development experience is that people are seeking a quality of life. That's the basics for what people are looking for. In recent years, that was demonstrated in PC's development of Sugar Land Town Square and the 190-acre LakePoint Town Center development, which effectively encircles the project that we're discussing tonight. This aerial shows the current site plan in the areas PCD has developed around the Fleur campus. We created a mixed-use setting, including retail, medical, high-density housing, and office. The land use percentage is approximately 1/3 for each of those uses. Our goal is to literally continue that plan while adding additional residential options and a greater focus on activating the waterfronts and expanding the public parks and green space. So in the master plan, it's actually labeled by color code as far as uses. Includes green space, residential, office, restaurant, retail, and hotel hospitality. From an overview standpoint, high-density residential, shown in yellow, will be located within the current 30 acres of surface parking. Currently, 4 home builders are working on multiple product types, all in a high-density arrangement similar to what we have developed in LakePoint Town Center. The Fuller Daniel entry will be flanked by uses such as high-density condos, which is the blue you can see, senior living, and multifamily live-work units, thereby concentrating the commercial uses along a major traffic corridor. From a master plan aerial, you can see the focal point of the project proposes a conference center and exhibition hall with adjacent upscale hotel. The city is studying this concept based on the current demand. We're working with multiple hotel developers that have determined the need for that product, as none exists today. When I say none of that product, I mean a 4-star hotel. What has drawn them to this location is, simply put, water. Potentially, to have the conference center next door would be extremely important to them. And then what would enhance the experience is having mixed uses and restaurants on the water, including retail and office. We talked about green space. Well, there's a significant amount of trails that already are in that area. So our goal is to add to what is there. We're going to add to the green space. We're going to improve the current pedestrian access with additional trails, sitting areas, and open space. The slide shows what exists in our initial ideas regarding pedestrian access, creation of more water frontage sites, and enhanced green space buffers. Abundant green space will wind through the project, connecting the water on the east side to the west side. And then we will also add a new bridge that will connect the island, if you would, over to Lifetime Fitness so that the people that are here can walk across conveniently. So what we talk about today is live, work, and play. And so what this does is to basically activate both of the waterfronts with a boardwalk and architectural piers that project into the water. Now, I'll have to say that the lady at the rowing club is already irritated that these piers are going out because they make their turn for those sculls. So we're going to have to look at how long those piers actually are. So I understand, I'm sensitive to that, and if she's listening, we're on it. So communities must include certain key elements. It's got to be experiential, walkable, safe, technology supported, smartly parked, and connected. The goal is to create multiple user experiences, whether they be community-wide event focused, like a farmer's market, a concert, or for the residents that just want to go out and have a cup of coffee along the water. These snapshots are to capture those major activity areas lending to the unique mixed-use settings not found in this region. Time won't allow us to discuss each one of these, but what I'll do is say that we looked at these from a local resident perspective, office commuters, and also for visitors. So on the top left, I'll go quickly, is the market building, which is in this area in the red right here. The top right is the public event space, which actually goes all the way from this side all the way through to here. So it's about 1 until. So if you look at all that from a master plan frontage and open community gathering space, if you've driven over to Fleur, you know that each one of these wedges, as we call them, are tree lined. What we've done is asked the architect Gensler to overlay our plan with that plan to save as many of those mature trees as possible. So this is a view from the waterfront east to west, if you would. So if you're in the condos across the lake, this would be your view. So what we're really saying is that to the left is the Conference Center Hotel. This is the Convention Center. Once again, the piers projecting into the water, the retail and the restaurants, office in the background, parking garage. This would be the multifamily. This is the mid-rise condo, flats. And then you can see the housing as it goes around the exterior here, beginning right there. So this is just kind of a close-up of Market Square. I mentioned this briefly. I'll just say it quickly. So this is that 1.4-acre community plaza, about the size of what you see in Town Square. But the point there is to have an activity building that can be, we're not sure if there's going to be a restaurant, multiple restaurants, or if it's just going to be a community open air where you can have farmers market, maybe a concert location or some other public activity. To the right, you can see the backside of the flats, if you would, and this is these amenities that would be over a parking garage. And then the balance of that, really, you can see over the top of this would be the retirement facility. So this is the master plan program, which Ruth was talking about. I really don't need to spend a lot of time on this, as she's already done so, but it shows the varying uses. So what's key, as she's already mentioned, is it gives us the flexibility outside of these two areas, which are limited to housing, to be able to basically address the demands of the market. So I appreciate this opportunity to present this. It's a very exciting project for us. We've worked for 5 years to get to this point, and we just appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do have a few more slides to get through, and then we'll get into the public hearing. So I wanted to let you know about some of the public engagement that we've done in the last couple of months. We have done some social media outreach, including next door posts that have been targeted to those in the LakePoint area. We have a project page on the city's website where we have posted a Sugar Scoop blog post and also done some Facebook posts. We have corresponded with the nearby HOAs through email and also communicated to anyone who has signed up via Text My Gov to let them know about the various public hearings and meetings that have been going on. The subject was also mentioned at the district town halls and a couple of HOA meetings. And then as Dawn mentioned, we did have a community meeting back in October on the 18th At the Fleur site, which you can kind of see in the background of this image here, we had approximately 60 attendees there where Don and I talked about the project. I talked just a little bit about these approvals that would need to take place for the site, but we didn't really spend a lot of time on the details of it. The focus was really on the vision, and so most of it was really Don talking through that vision for what was being proposed on the site. The questions that we heard from residents focused largely on traffic, school impact, and the overall development timeline. As I mentioned, we also reviewed this information with the Planning and Zoning Commission at several meetings. We started with a couple of workshops in September and October, and then on November 14th, they had a public hearing and their consideration and action on the 3 action items. There were 12 speakers during the public hearing. 6 spoke in favor, 5 were opposed, and then there was 1 that was neutral. Those in support praised the market responsiveness of the proposal and recognized the importance of Sugar Land's continued growth and the developer's tenure in the community, as well as advocated for quality development. Those who were opposed wanted more opportunities for the public input and Planning and Zoning Commission City Council oversight, as well as wanted some answers related to public infrastructure capacity. There were questions, like, as I mentioned, about traffic, the bridges, schools, generally not supportive of additional apartments in Sugar Land, and expressed concerns with crime associated with higher density and future ownership. The commission held some really great discussions at all 3 of those meetings. I don't want to tell you every single detail of what they talked about, but did want to kind of give you a recap, and you do have a little bit more detail in your packet as well as some of their conversation. But they did recognize staff and the joint task force between the commission and council for their effort in developing the draft code that is before everyone, emphasized the importance of civic space, and specifically spent some time talking about how to ensure that it is oriented to the natural features, being that Brooks Lake is such a significant feature of this area. And so we did make some changes to the code as a result of that conversation. There were some questions about the ratio of multifamily to single-family homes in Sugar Land, questions related to height regulations in the LakePoint redevelopment district. There were just a variety of sort of technical revisions for clarity and readability that they requested that we made. And then finally, they asked us to kind of cover the benefits of our current proposed approach versus the planned development districts. And so I did want to just cover that very quickly, because I know this is something that has come up quite a bit in the last year or 2 as we've been talking through this process. Just as a reminder of why we're sort of changing our approach and moving away from the planned development district. So the PD is expensive and time consuming. It really relies a lot on negotiations, and that makes it uncertain. So a developer going into a project doesn't know what they're going to come out with at the end. And in the end, it is also very inflexible. It really doesn't allow a developer to respond over time to the market as it changes. And so what you have before you today will allow for that certainty up front, and it also allows for a little bit more flexibility in the long run, so that the development can respond to the market as it changes over time. And then the final thing I wanted to touch on that the commission talked about was the kind of the timing of the city's receipt of various development studies, such as traffic impact analyses and school capacity analyses. This was something that came up with the public as well as the commission. So as I mentioned before, these are studies that will be completed prior to platting, site planning, permitting, kind of whatever that appropriate step is. But I do think it's important just to note that these are not feasibility studies that determine whether a project will proceed or not. These are studies that identify the impacts of a project and then outline any necessary mitigation measures that will need to be addressed in the future. So on November 14th, the commission did unanimously recommend approval to the city council for an amendment to the land use plan, amending the development code, and approving a redevelopment concept plan for LakePoint Plaza. I did want to make a note that there was one minor change that we made as a result of the Planning and Zoning Commission discussion. It wasn't actually in their action, but we recognized an error that we needed to address, and so there was one very minor change that was made that I've identified there in the code. So with that, all of that, tonight staff does recommend, and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend, approval on first reading of Ordinance 2326, which amends the land use plan, revising text and land use chart, and increasing the number of multifamily units, as well as Ordinance number 2325, amending the development code and rezoning the property. So this would establish the LakePoint redevelopment district and rezone about 69 acres that's located at Fleur Daniel Drive from Planned Development District to LakePoint Redevelopment District. So your next steps are to hold that public hearing and then hold the first reading of the two ordinances, with the second reading coming before you on the 19th. And then once again, the redevelopment concept plan we anticipate either on or after December 19th. We did notify property owners within 200 feet. We have received some letters of opposition. I believe the council has received some of those letters as well. And so we look forward to hearing from the public as they come before us tonight as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions for you after the public hearing.
Ruth, I think at this time we're going to take a 10-minute recess
Okay.
before we get into this, and then we'll have, I've got, at 5 after 7, we'll reconvene.
Sounds good.
Give everybody a chance to stretch their legs. Before we move to the public hearing, I want to make a couple comments. We have received written comments. I believe we've received 6. And because of the way we set up the agenda, we won't be reading those into the public record. But all those copies have been made available to each council member at the dais. So council members are able to read through, we're able to read through prior to this meeting, those comments. So those comments will be taken into account. I just wanted to make that comment. A little bit about the public hearing. Again, we're going to allow people 5 minutes. When you come to the podium, and I'll read, I have right now, I've got 12 people that have signed up to speak. If you haven't signed up to speak, it doesn't mean that you can't. When we're finished with these 12, then I'll have another call for people that would like to speak that maybe weren't given the opportunity. You can fill out one of these sheets, get it to Robin, and we'll bring you up to the podium. Everyone will be given, you'll be given 5 minutes to speak. Again, it's only on these 3 items that we read earlier that we're going to be commenting on. I'd ask everybody to be respectful. No clapping. Let's get, it's going to be, I think, probably a long evening for most people. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and call the public hearing and ask that anyone that wants to speak, and I'm going to start with item number 1, Mike Mulcahy, would you please come down? Evening, Mike.
I was going to wonder, commenting on your endurance. It was amazing. My name is Mike Mulcahy. I've lived in Sugar Land since 1991. Came here a year after Joe, apparently. I have raised 4 children in Sugar Land. I'm fortunate to have 3 that still live here, and I'm expecting my 4th Sugar Land grandchild to be born soon.
Congratulations.
So I'm obviously passionate about the city, excited about being part of it, and my business is here. I'm on Brook Street, and I actually ride my bike from my home through the old Fleur Daniel complex behind Lifetime and go to my office on Brook Street sometimes.
Mike, where do you live?
I live in Oyster Point.
Okay. Address?
Near Stewart.
1438.
Yes.
Your address. 1438 Camelot Place.
Is that now on public record?
Yes.
I do investment management professionally as a career. We manage institutional money as well as individuals, but I see a lot of real estate development. I get pitch books emailed to me all the time, and I look at them. And I love looking at them. When I saw this opportunity and saw it come out in the press and saw it talking to Don Jansen and the team, I got really excited about it. I've had the opportunity to live in walkable cities. I've lived in London, I've lived in Boston, and I've lived and walked in a city, and I know it is an exciting demographic, an exciting place to live, an exciting way to live. I could see it as a way I want to live someday as I age along the way. But I also think it's a big part of what most cities are trying to develop. And so we have this unique opportunity for Sugar Land to step up and be a leader in this space and build something that is attractive and distinctive to our city. So I think when I see the plans for the affordable housing and the walkability, I think that's very exciting. I think we do need better hotel and convention capabilities. I hope that would be key to us attracting businesses, which we obviously need in order to generate tax dollars, which selfishly I would like to see those monies come in and less out of me. So I'm excited about trying to draw some more tourist and business opportunities here in town. I also think we lack kind of evening activities. I mean, there are places where you can enjoy sitting outdoors, even in this steamy, hot city. We still enjoy sitting outside, looking at the water, enjoying some live music or whatever it may be. The Market Square concepts, I've seen it downtown. I see it in different parts of the city. I like that concept. I'm very excited about that. And as I mentioned, it's we do have an aging population as well. So creating a place where people can live and walk, and it's a simpler life. It seems very attractive to me as well. So I look forward to, as I age, looking at this hopefully down the road as a place where my wife and I may reside along the way. As Don mentioned when he's speaking, I think we have a great developer. I mean, we all have benefited from the work that he and his team have done through the years, the quality of work and the care for the city. So having an outside developer would be just probably not as aligned with who we are and the culture we want to create in our city. And from probably a negative side, just the last thing is, what are we going to do with this? In my mind, I see it as like the Sugarland Astrodome. I don't want the floor building to be this dilapidated old building that's just sitting there. We have an opportunity to transform this into something exciting and something that is an attractive for residents and for businesses. So I'm obviously in favor of that. I'll yield my last minute and 22 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Our next guest is Tim Steubenrauch. Evening, Tim.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, city staff. Thank you for hearing us today. My name is Tim Steubenrauch. I'm a resident here, have been a resident since 1995. Raised 2 children here. I work in the community. I've been a participant on boards and commissions here in the city, and I love living, working, and playing here in Sugarland. I think redevelopment's a very important part of our community, of our future in our community. We see opportunities here to enhance not only tax value, but also enhance lifestyle within our community. I support what we're attempting to do here at Floridaniel and the other redevelopment districts here in our city. And I especially support our developer who has a wealth of experience in this community doing this kind of thing for residents. Don and his team are committed, they're knowledgeable, and they're experienced to do this kind of redevelopment in our community. And I support this development. So I'll yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Tim. Where do you live?
I live at 3210 Spring Trail in Austin Meadow behind Clemens High School.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank
you. Our next guest is Craig Pop.
Thank you for having me.
Evening.
How you doing? My name is Craig Pope. I live here in First Colony since 1990. I have 3 businesses here. I know Don. The reason that I came here is because I've moved twice in First Colony, and it's because of the way it's developed. And Don had a very important part of doing that. So knowing that his back history and everything else, I know this project's going to be done and done right. He cares about the community. He cares about people in the community, and I know that the project's going to be the perfect situation to please everybody, even the ones that are against this. I know that when it's done, they're going to go, man, I'm glad he did this. So short, sweet, but I know it's going to be a great project. I really think Don's going to do a great job with it, and I really want it to go forward. Thank you.
Our next guest is Nicole Michelle Felder. Nicole. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Michelle Felder. I reside at 15611 Worcester Cove Drive in the villas at LakePoint, and I'm also the individual who sent email out yesterday morning. The first thing I want to talk about is notice. Notice is supposed to be given in a 200 feet circumference, is my understanding, and I have yet to receive any notice from the developer. The way I find information is my neighbor who does get it forwards the email. So notice has been a big, big problem. The second thing I want to speak about is while the neighbors in LakePoint, the villas at LakePoint, have a great respect for Don, we feel like this project, as it has been presented, gives too much of a carte blanche. don't know if it's going to be a conference center, don't know if it's going to be for concerts, don't know how many fourplexes, don't know how many duplexes, don't know how much office space. I think the pencils need to be sharpened, and we need to have more certainty. Is there going to be affordable housing? There certainly needs to be some restrictions, because my neighbors and I definitely don't want that in our community. We want to protect the integrity of Sugar Land and also our property values. The other thing is...
Ms. Felder, I'm sorry, can you back a little bit away from the mic?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Can you
That's
hear
all
me?
right. Yes, perfect.
Okay. The other thing that I wanted to mention is on the Sugar Land website, it talks about financial strength and viability and transparency. And transparency is only as good as the individuals who know and understand what needs to be transparent. And I think to give a blanket proposal with not specifics that the developer can be held accountable to would be a disgrace to the residents of Sugar Land. The other point is, when you look at the LakePoint redevelopment district, it says on the website the increase for multifamily units went from 444 to whatever the new number is for financial or economic feasibility. The developer making money has nothing to do with the residents of Sugar Land. Nothing at all. I think as council members and the mayor, you guys should take a step back and really look at what's going on here and do what's in the best interest of everyone and not a developer with an idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next guest is Jared Jameson.
I'm Jared Jameson, 1358 Lake Point. You could see my house in some of those pictures. I want to thank the mayor and city council for having us tonight and spending a lot of time. And you're not done yet. You've got a ways to go. And I was hoping to get 9 minutes because there were 3 items, but 5 I'll have to do with. Look, I grew up in Sugar Land. I've been here since 1976. I was here before there was anything on the floor site, so I remember when they built the building. I've had a long relationship. My wife worked at Floor. My brother-in-law worked at Floor. Been involved with the EDC for many years, so I've been to that campus 2 times a month for 15 years. But I think I want to talk today more about my personal view, because I do look out my bedroom window every morning at the Floor campus. And someone said it earlier. I mean, let's just start with, what are our options here? Something needs to be done. I mean, basically the building's going to be empty. It's not feasible to be leased. No one wants to lease it. It's an old building. It's falling down. Something has to be done, right? I moved from Greatwood, as I said, when my daughter left the house. I was never going to go up to the 2nd floor, and we wanted a different lifestyle. We wanted a lifestyle where we could walk to shopping, to restaurants. I go to Orange Theory, and it's great because after Orange Theory, I can go get a big bowl of queso right over there at Torchy's. There's nothing better, right? Like, that's an opportunity I wouldn't have living in Greatwood. I have to get in my car. The problem right now is we need more people at Lake Point. There's empty restaurants there. There's empty retail spaces. We need more people. I came and supported the Pearl development, which were apartments, because I thought that it was important to bring more people. I'd make the same argument here. If I think about the reasons that we left Greatwood and moved to Lake Point, and I think about this development, it would make it tremendously better. Like, all of the opportunities for the hotel, the conference center, more restaurants, more opportunities for office space where people can live and work. It's an ideal development. And then finally, let me add, I don't think you would find a better developer to develop this property. I mean, who has been the biggest contributor to economic development in this community? It's Plain Community and Don Jansen. If you give up this opportunity and you refuse to give him the opportunity to develop the property, you're taking a big chance, and you should be cautious about that, because I'm not sure if someone else is going to step up, right? And as I said, the downside of that empty building sitting there that I'm going to stare at, right, and y'all are going to stare at every time you drive by, is a challenge. And then one final comment. 30 acres of parking spots. So I find it a little bit disingenuous for the residents who live there to claim that traffic is not an issue. It's not an issue because floor is only 20% full. If all of those spots were full, and they were full, many of you don't remember, yeah, there were a lot of people there, but the expectation that traffic should stay or remain the way it is, I think is unreasonable. There were 30 acres of parking spots, and there used to be more parking in that empty lot because they had more people there. So the people have been fortunate that there's not a lot of traffic right now, me and my neighbors. I don't want traffic, but when I moved into the community, I recognized that if floor was completely full at 100% occupancy, there would be a lot more traffic. So I don't really find that to be a valid argument against the project. So that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Jerry. Our next guest is Nick Leitner.
Good evening, City Council members.
Good evening,
Mayor. It's good to see you all again. My name is Nick Leitner, 16435 Creek Bend Drive. I'm in favor of the proposed redevelopment, and so I'll keep my remarks brief. You really do not get an opportunity to reimagine a site like this very often, and I know a lot of hard work, time, and effort has gone into it. And I think the most important thing is that you pick a team that's qualified, that's experienced, that has the vision, and has the determination to actually succeed with the plan. It's one thing to create a plan, and it's another thing entirely to execute it. And you have all of those attributes with Don and PCD. The mix of uses that have been proposed are appropriate, and they are commensurate with current market conditions and the future demand for Sugar Land. The design team that they have employed is well respected and have put forth an ambitious and cohesive concept plan, which you've all seen. And as echoed earlier, with a long track record of successful commercial development in Sugar Land, I really can't think of a better team to lead this project into the future. I'll give back my time. Thank you so much for your consideration and full support of the plan as proposed.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Our next guest is Doug Goff. Doug?
I'm coming. Okay. Doug Goff, 1 Quiet Vista Drive in Quiet Cove community in Imperial. Been here since 1990. My work has been in land development. I came here to develop the New Territory community when it was just a raw piece of land. And then I hooked up with Larry Johnson when we bought Sienna Plantation. Mm-hmm. And of course, from there, we've developed numerous properties in Fort Bend, including Riverstone and Imperial and Harvest Green and on and on and on. And I could reiterate so much of what Jared and the other folks have said about this is a unique opportunity for the city to have a developer with the kind of experience and track record and vision and responsiveness to the market conditions. I mean, you have to have residential to make all the other uses work, period. And the kind of residential that I know that Don's thinking of and they're planning for is not affordable products. It's not feasible to put something like that into this facility with the amount of investment and cost that it's going to take to make this thing livable. So from that standpoint, I think the housing quality and the quantity of the housing is a must to make this work. And I know Don can pull it off. The other thing that I've heard so many times, and I've dealt with this on numerous occasions, has to do with multifamily. And it's just a product that our market requires to make a product like this, a project like this work. And I mean, we've got thousands of units in Sienna Plantation and Riverstone and all our other communities, so it's not an issue of impacting quality value of all the surrounding land. I mean, if you look at even in First Colony, the multifamily projects that have been there for over 20 years are still in great shape because you have means of keeping them maintained, and you have deed restrictions to keep them in a first-class condition. So even over time, something like that proves itself. And I know that all the properties that we have developed, including those with the multifamily, well, they all have multifamily for that matter, but it has to be first class, and I'm sure that's exactly what Don is planning. So my wish to you is to is to allow his vision to go forward, even though it's not specific today exactly what's going in. He needs that flexibility to respond to market conditions because things just change, over time. So I think the approach that the city is taking today and how staff has put this together to allow incremental timing for making these kinds of decisions, just know that whatever decision is made is going to be in the highest quality. So I think it's appropriate, and I sure hope you consider passing this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Our next guest is Mukhtar Owai. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. My name is Mukhtar Owais. I live at 2 Stadium Drive, and we currently own and are developing property in LakePoint. We were really excited when we heard about this project, and knowing Don and working with Don in the past, we know that this is the right team to execute this project. I've been sitting here and kind of hearing people talk about, I've been in the city since 91, 92, 93, while I was getting ready to be born around that time. So I haven't been here that long, but there is a wealth of experience in the room. And the type of project that's being proposed at the Floor campus currently, are the types of projects that you read about in newspaper articles across the country. This is where the state of development is going, the higher density, the walkability. That's the type of project the city of Sugar Land needs. The city of Sugar Land is a brand that's recognized not just here in Houston or Texas. There's people I know in Pakistan and India that know Sugar Land. They don't know any other state or city in the United States, but they know Sugar Land. And the team that's developing the project is great. The main thing that I want to focus on is the process of the land plan and the flexibility that the developer needs to kind of execute this. Having gone through a very painful PD process to develop a 0.79 acre tract for our property is something that I kind of relate to, and I understand that this is exactly what's needed, and I want to commend city staff for taking that step and kind of stepping out and being more flexible and allowing that flexibility of uses so a project like this can be successful in the long term. So we fully support the project. We're very excited about it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next guest is Susan Fortenberry. Susan. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Susan Fortenberry. I live at 4307 Greystone Way. And I only prepared about 3 minutes, but I've got some of my other bits and pieces of letters I've sent, so I'll have to kind of cobble it together a little bit. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate the time all of you volunteer on the behalf of Sugar Land. I am opposed to the current trend to squeeze large numbers of closely built middle housing and large blocks of multifamily rental units into the heart of Sugar Land. Please keep the 2018 land use plan multifamily unit cap at 444. Do not allow it to increase to 1,100 units for the LakePoint redevelopment district. People move to Sugar Land because it's a wonderfully diverse suburb with highly educated population, with nice homes and beautiful, safe neighborhoods where children can attend very highly ranked public neighborhood zone schools. Please do not overcrowd our excellent schools. There's no room to build new schools in the Kempner, Dulles, Clement zones. Many of those schools have used temporary buildings for decades. They're already over capacity. All neighborhoods in the affected zones should be surveyed by mail for their opinion before permission to develop large numbers of multifamily rental units is even considered. The current condition of Sugar Land is due to the thoughtful development by past city council members, P&Z boards, and city staff, and it is consistently ranked in the top places to live. In 1999, we moved here from Fondren Southwest. We've seen a lot of wonderful development, but Sugar Land still retains its sweet suburban character. It doesn't need to change to attract or accommodate anyone. Sugar Land has never jumped on any urbanization trend. Many years ago, in the late 70s and early 80s, when Fondren Southwest and A-Leaf built large numbers of rental apartments targeted to attract young professionals, Sugar Land did not. The pandemic has been used as an excuse to cut back on building offices, but a recent edition of the Houston Chronicle has an article stating Austin, Houston, Dallas are leading U.S. cities in workers' return to office. Please don't let developers urbanize Sugar Land for their own profit. Other cities continue to develop in the same economic climate in Texas. Southlake, a suburb of Dallas, it recently broke ground on Carilion Park Southlake. It's a 42-acre mixed-use development which will have 0 multifamily rental units, along with upscale retail, restaurants, office space, a hotel, and 8+ acres of green space. This project will contain less than 150 single-family homes and condos. The current citizens of Sugar Land are expected to maintain and improve our properties, pay our taxes and city utilities, be law-abiding, support local businesses and schools, vote for any new bond projects, volunteer where possible, and in general be very good citizens. But we've been ignored and forgotten in the current push. The current concept plan allows for too much flexibility in favor of the developer. The LakePoint concept drawing has eliminated Creek Bend Drive and all the mature trees lining both sides of the enclave down to Floor Daniel Drive. Please require the retention of those mature trees. The orange is Creek Bend. It's not on their map. Please include City Council oversight for this code. It doesn't need to be as time-consuming as the previous process, but do not pass this as is. Please insist that meetings for the City Council votes are required for everything built in this project. Please decrease the percentage of all residences on the LakePoint Peninsula. Please require the retention of all the mature live oaks lining both sides of Creek Bend Drive. This new area would be a perfect place to require eco-friendly and sustainable development practices. Let's jump on that trend. It would benefit all of Sugar Land and attract tourists if there was a fine dining restaurant with the best views of Sugar Land on the top floor of a tall hotel, not just a giant apartment building. Using the existing beautiful tree-lined edge of Brooks Lake for water activities would bring in tourist dollars. We need more of that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next guest is Rod Craig. Rod? Evening, Rod.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council, and I'd like to thank the staff for all the wonderful work that they've done on this. I speak in favor of this project. I have known Don Jansen and PCD for, over 20 years that we've been here. We moved here in the early 90s. Our first home in Sugar Land used to be a golf course there, but our house is built on that golf course, and we've since moved to LakePoint. We were one among the first families to move on LakePoint. And it's one day after church, my wife and I decided to go get some hamburger meat to grill some hamburgers, and we saw the new development coming up out of the ground, so let's go over there and take a look. Lo and behold, about 30 minutes later, I'm writing an earnest money check. So we thoroughly enjoyed being there, but we really moved there for the lifestyle. My wife and I don't have any children. We started out with a big 4,000 square foot home in the cul-de-sac, thinking we were going to have a nice big family. That didn't work out. So obviously we made a lifestyle change, and we were very attracted to LakePoint because guess what? We can leave our front door, walk to Whole Foods. There are a plethora of restaurant opportunities right down the street from us. So that was our lifestyle. I'm a business owner. My office is literally a mile from where we live. So this was ideal for us. My wife is a retired Fort Bend ISD administrator, so even being there, it was close for her. But anyway, this is a tremendous opportunity for City Council and the City of Sugar Land. It's rare that you get an opportunity to get a second bite of the apple for a piece of property that looks like this, with water to attract people. And the worst thing that could happen here is we do nothing, and Floor becomes, as someone said, I think it was Mike, the next Astrodome, where we've got this albatross hung around our neck. And if you want to see something create a negative property value impact, having an eyesore or blight next door to us will certainly do that. And then we've got restaurants that are struggling. We have some of the highest rents in LakePoint Plaza. Those folks are struggling because sales per square foot doesn't make it for them. What they need is density to help them get along. And that will help support tax dollars coming into the city. I pay a lot of taxes. I'd like to kind of spread that out a little bit. So I support this. We've got a great developer. I've seen the plans, and granted, it's all conceptual at this point. And everybody that stood up here, whether they're for this or not, they all bring up good points. So I trust that city and staff and the developer will take that into consideration, and I think this is going to be a fine project if we move forward with it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rod. Our next guest is Michael Poindexter.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. I am a native Michael Poindexter, 904 Amelia Street. I live across from Floor Daniel and Enclave. So, I'm a native Houstonian, born and raised in Houston Heights and Woodland Heights. Loved it there, loved Houston. I grew up, I love the Gulf Coast, the way it feels. Did my formal education out of state. When I finished, my wife and I both knew the Houston area. We didn't want to return to Houston. We wanted to return to Sugar Land. We knew enough about Sugar Land to say, this is a great place. I've been here 35 years, since 88. I've lived no other place. I had opportunities for my company to move multiple times to Naperville, Illinois, also another great city. 8 times I said, no, thank you. I really like this city. We do need to do something with this transformation. I agree, it would be an eyesore and it would be a waste. And it is a building that I run in that parking lot all the time, and it is falling apart very slowly. And why wouldn't it? They're leaving to go to the energy corridor, and so something needs to be done. Before I go any further, I'd like to thank, I've been to all 3 meetings in this room and the one over at Floor, and I would like to thank Matt Gallagher, the Zoning and Planning Commission, Ruth, wherever she is, yep, and her team. We've been to my wife and I have been to all 4 meetings. They've done a fabulous job. They ask lots of questions. They come prepared. They give us good representation. They're still not settled on all the points because, hey, it hasn't been finalized in many ways, but they've made a lot of progress. A lot of work has been done. So they have my respect. So as I stated, I'm in favor of transforming the property. I would never at this point in time try to dictate the way it looks, except for one point. And it's a point that was made this evening, and it was made at the 3rd meeting in this room. And that is, what's the #1 feature? Why are they building it here? Well, first of all, it exists, and it's going to be an eyesore, and it's a big parking lot, which I like to run around in, okay? It's nice. I'm the only one there at night. So you're taking away my running track, but I'm willing to sacrifice. I'm kidding. It's a beautiful piece of property. That's why I live across the street, and that's why I like to run there. They said the #1 feature, and it's the reason I love it, is the water feature. Who doesn't like water, right? But yet it was stated tonight again emphatically, they're going to do one thing, and it's on the books, and it was on the drawing up there. They're going to build over the water feature. They're going to, and what they're going to build, I don't know. I cannot think, and here's where I want to be emphatic, on at least what I would try to say, I would hold my ground on. Give me one good reason you would build something on top of the feature that is your #1 attraction. And I'll give you an analogy. I don't own a swimming pool, but I have a number of acquaintances that do. And when you build a swimming pool, you're very proud of it, and you invite your family, and you invite your neighbors, and your friends, and whatever, and you have parties. I have never been to a pool, and never heard of a pool, that someone builds a water feature, and then turns around and builds something on top of it to enhance it, builds a plank or something, so people can get, what, closer, over it? you're hiding the very thing. That should be maximized. If anything, they should widen it, right? So while I'm in favor of the rowing club, I have my own personal reason, and that is I love to walk around that place, run around it, and the water is really what kind of makes me feel like I'm next to the 4th largest city in the country, but I feel like I'm in Sugar Land, okay? So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Our final guest is Jeff McKelvey. Jeff, and again, if someone else wants to speak in the audience when Jeff is finished, if you raise your hand and come down, we'll allow you to speak. Jeff, go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you for having us all talk to you tonight. Resident of Sugar Land, I guess we're laying out our resumes for 50 years. Grew up in a neighborhood called Alkire Lake. Currently live in Sugar Creek and own property in the villas of LakePoint with my neighbors here behind me tonight. There wasn't a box for I've succumbed to the fact that this is happening. So I've succumbed to the fact that this is happening. The one thing that I would ask of council is they keep passing over, glossing over, it's up on the screen, nobody will address it, is a study of the traffic. In the last meeting, they said it will be impacted, that no study had been done, that no study is planned to be done. I would ask the council recommend, heck, demand a study traffic. I don't know how many of you are residents of LakePoint, but you don't have to be a resident of LakePoint to know that that corner of Highway 6 and US Highway 59 is a nightmare, to use the councilman's message from the Greatwood area. There's only 3 ways in and out of there. We're going to add 1,100 dwellings. If we have, some dwellings have 1, some have 3, some have 4, we're going to potentially have 2 people per dwelling. That's 2,200 new cars that are going to have to try to get in and out of LakePoint with 3 entry and exit points. So I'd ask, and I would think that it would be irresponsible for City Council not to demand that a study traffic be done for this area. That's all I have for the evening. I appreciate you listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address council? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, I'm Debbie Leo. We've been known as the Poindexters. My husband Michael just spoke, and we've come to all the planning and zoning committee meetings.
Yes, ma'am.
And we live at 904 Amelia Street, enclave at LakePoint. What I would like to offer is, as my husband did, deep abiding thanks to the Planning and Zoning Commission, who have done tedious, long, hard work that we just got a tiny vision of seeing. But they were receptive, and I have to say Don has been too. He has been too. I don't know him. I have no friend or relative on the committees or anywhere, so this is not a pull for that. Yeah. But I wanted to say thank you. And in addition, that thanks, I think, extends back, because I've lived in Sugar Land for 35 years, and I had the privilege of being a friend of Bob Armstrong, who was one of the presidents of Imperial Sugar. And he would talk about how much he loved Sugar Land and being a company town, and what a company town meant, and what that was like back in his day. And when they saw that 59 coming through, they knew they had to do something, right? And they had a vision. And he would tell stories in Bob Armstrong language. I can't repeat everything, but basically it was a messy and sometimes tedious and contentious process. But we have inherited that. And we have been privileged to live here, and now it is our turn. It is our turn to create and keep going forward with that vision. And I think, yes, we have to take down those buildings. And I think Don has a reasonable plan. Does it need to be tweaked here and there? Of course. and that's going to be happening. This isn't going to happen in 1 or 2 years. But I would say Bob Armstrong and the people then gave us this vision, and it is our turn. And I think this is the time, the planning and zoning, we have this opportunity. I think it could be spectacular. I think it can be, will be. And it is our responsibility to do so. And thank you for this.
Thank you, Ms. Poindexter. Is there anyone else? This time we're going to close the public hearing, and we're going to move to Ruth. I'd ask you to step back up. Remind us of the 2 items we're taking action on. It's really only 1 and 2. And then I'm going to open it up to the council members for questions before I move on to item number 7, which is the ordinances and resolutions.
Yes, sir. You're taking action tonight on the 2 ordinances, I believe.
It's A and B.
Yes.
All right. So let me read those. Item number 7, ordinances and resolutions. 4A, first consideration. Consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land ordinance number 2326, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, amending the areas of change, LakePoint Regional Activity Center in Section 5 of the Land Use Plan, Chapter 6 of the City of Sugar Land Comprehensive Plan. Item 7B, first consideration. Consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land ordinance number 2325, an ordinance of the City of Sugar Land amending Chapter 2 of the Sugar Land Development Code by adding new LakePoint Redevelopment Zoning District, LPR, providing regulations and a permitted uses and parking table for this district, amending and adding definitions, providing for a change of zoning from planned development, PD, to LakePoint Redevelopment District, LPR, for approximately 69 acres of land located along Creek Bend Drive and Floor Daniel Drive. I'll open it up to the council. Questions? Carol?
We can ask a question about any of both of them at the same time?
Yes, ma'am. You can ask about either one.
Great, super. Well, anyway, I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who came out to speak tonight. We really appreciate your input. And to follow up on one of the speakers regarding the notice given to property owners within 200 feet of the land associated with the redevelopment plan, do they start at the perimeter of the property and then do 200 feet out all the way around the circumference of that?
That's correct. It would include anyone within and on the edges, along the edges of that property. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And then there will be a traffic impact analysis done at some point, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. And then I just had maybe a Don question, but in the concept plan sketches, it looks like I guess the apartment or condo building could be up to 18 or 20 stories tall, and I know it's just a concept right now, and I was just sort of curious if that is really, I don't know if that'd even be economic to do, and it looks pretty catchy in the rendering, but is that really a consideration here, or are you really looking at something a little bit lower in scale?
I'll just say architects don't pay for buildings, they just draw them. So I don't think you're going to see a building that's that tall.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious because I know with the Pearl's going to be about 5 stories tall, and when
Right.
Stantec did the recent study on Track 5, and they're into high-density urban development, the tallest they had there was 6. So I was thinking, well, 18 or 20, I'm thinking that's probably not going to be economic to do on that, but.
Yeah, it'll be a shock to both of us if it's 18 stories.
Okay, great. Thank you. Then switching over to the follow-up, Mayor.
Follow-up.
Oh, gosh, now I've lost my notes. Anyway, just a question on the regional activities, the land use plan amendment. On the pie chart, it talks about the use percentages in the RAC. And I guess when I first saw the percentages, I was thinking, oh, that's probably developable acres. But then based on something that you said, I guess in the P&Z hearing, is actually I guess maybe a volume. It's not even a square footage of the buildings. It's almost like a square footage times height of the buildings, and then based on that, you got the volume and you calculated it. Could you talk a little bit about how you came up with those?
Sure, yes. So it's not based on acreage of the property, rather it is based on essentially the square footage that's dedicated to that particular use. We did it by that type of calculation because we knew that there were going to be and that there are mixed-use buildings within these areas. And so if you did it by acreage, how would you calculate that for a building that has both residential and retail, or office and retail? And so we did it by use type by each building to make that calculation. And so in this case, we did go through and calculate, estimate calculation for all of the existing buildings, as well as based on Don's plan, acknowledging that it will change. It's not even that it might change, it will change over time. But we used his plan as sort of a starting point to calculate what those numbers would be, and then kind of built some buffer around that for the kind of plus or minus in the pie chart.
Okay, then one more. Now, in the November 14th P&Z meeting, a question came up from one of the commissioners if urban homes such as Cottage Court are included or excluded in the overall ratio of single-family housing to multifamily dwelling units. And I understood that the response might have been like maybe, possibly, something like that. And of course, I served on the Land Use Advisory Committee, and we prepared the land use plan, which is, it's 156 pages long. It's pretty big, but it's very clear in the land use plan that, and in fact, you said it tonight, that the middle housing, which is townhomes, urban homes, multiplexes, is something that's in between single family and multifamily.
Right.
So middle housing is not included in the overall ratio of single-family housing to multifamily. So I wanted to clarify that. And I can recite pages from the land use plan if you'd like, but I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page on that.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. So the land use plan, we did make references, as you mentioned, to cottage court housing and urban homes, but we didn't have the terminology missing middle housing. That wasn't available to us at the time. And but I think that when we talked about the distinction from single family to multifamily, all of the references to multifamily, when you look at the pictures and when you read about the references to multifamily, it was really talking about the larger complexes, the 150, 200, 250 plus types of complexes. It really wasn't addressing places that are much smaller, that are more these house scale type middle housing that we're talking about here. And so I would say that the land use plan, if anything, it's probably gray whether that middle housing should be considered single family or considered multifamily. And so I don't know that we've made a final determination on that, but I think it's unclear in the land use plan because we didn't necessarily have that terminology that we used as explicitly as we have available to us now.
Well, I said I served on that committee for a long time, and I know what our definition was. And the single family was single family homes and single family neighborhoods, and the multifamily was multifamily, and those are the two things that went into that calculation. And well, I will quote a couple things briefly from the land use plan on page 46. It says, Sugar Land's predominant residential type is traditional single-family suburban. And while some townhomes, urban homes, and condos exist in the city, the quantities of these alternative housing types are limited. Single-family homes will continue to be the primary type of housing option available and should be 88% of the housing mix in Sugar Land and the ETJ. So this very clearly says that single-family homes are in the 88% of the housing mix, whereas townhomes, urban homes, and condos are classified as alternative housing types outside of single-family homes. And going on to page 49 as another example, it says, in order to preserve the nature of Sugar Land's single-family neighborhoods, the plan envisions an 88% single-family housing, 12% multifamily housing ratio for the foreseeable future. So again, the 88% single-family housing is specifically referring to single-family in single-family neighborhoods, and there's some other examples of that as well. They're talking about detached single-family homes set behind front lawns on residential streets, created by separation of commercial activity and buffering from other uses. So for the clarity's sake, in Exhibit A, the third paragraph, after the sentence, the activity center should include a variety of housing types, including missing middle housing such as townhomes, urban homes, and duplexes, as well as multifamily and senior living. I would like to add a short clarifying sentence here that middle housing is not included in the overall ratio of single-family housing to multifamily housing. So that we're compatible with the land use plan and the intent of, when we served on the land use advisory committee, what our intent was on that.
Would that apply to the rest of the city as well? I'm sorry, you're saying you would like for that to be changed in the LakePoint?
Oh, I just would like to, I would like to put clarification in there, that basically when you have middle housing in activity centers, that, it is not considered in the overall ratio of single-family housing to multifamily dwelling units, because that's, like I said, a single-family versus multifamily, and the middle housing is just that, it's middle housing in between single-family and multifamily.
Okay.
But I think it should be applied across the a board. I mean, it's not specific to LakePoint. It was specific to, the definition that, urban homes are medium density, and they fall in between the single-family homes in the single-family neighborhoods and the multifamily.
So, point of order. So, what are you asking to amend?
Oh, I just wanted to add a sentence for clarification.
Okay.
Middle housing is not included in the overall ratio of single-family housing to multifamily housing.
Okay. I guess I'm trying to understand I think the point is that you're trying to make is that Sugar Land is going to primarily be single-family residential. Is that what the point you're trying to make?
Oh, I was reading from the land use plan, yes. It's 88% single-family housing to 12%. And I said the question had come up from the commissioners at the November 14th P&Z meeting, and we're asking really about where do the urban homes fall in that calculation? Are they included or not included? And based on the serving on land use, and middle housing is not included in that 88 to 12 calculation.
And just to clarify, urban homes and townhomes are both single family because they are on their own lots. So they are part of missing middle housing, but they're also single family. So it's not a distinct line.
It's not their own classification.
But townhomes, are, whether they're attached or detached, are not considered multifamily as defined by the
we would not.
city.
We would consider them single
And
family.
senior living, they're not defined as multifamily, even though they're sort of a type of apartment.
Correct.
They're not considered multifamily because they're age restricted.
Correct.
And so within urban homes are really not included in that ratio because they're not a single-family home in a single-family neighborhood, and they're not a multi-family dwelling, and they're also not one of the things that we just simply don't count.
But what I'm saying is they are counted in the single-family numbers. In that 8812, they are part of 88%.
Well, the townhomes are separate categories. You've got single-family homes, and you've got townhomes, you've got senior living, you've got multifamily.
No, urban homes and townhomes are both part of single family because they are on their own, detached. It is one unit on one lot, and so they have they're considered single family.
What about the attached townhomes, though?
Same. We still have a lot. I live in one.
It's a separate, distinct lot. It's one unit on one lot.
We're just attached. We just have a common wall.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor. Ruth, just clarification purposes. For the items that we have before us, is a duplex, quadplex, sixplex, is that multifamily?
No.
Okay. So multifamily is only
7 and up in the ordinance.
7 and up. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Nisha.
Thank you, Mayor. Ruth, on item B, the ordinance number 2325, if it gets approved tonight, can there be changes done by staff without going to P&Z that are major and material changes that happen? Besides, I know we're giving a blanket approval and blanket is a bad word, but approval with a lot of restrictions. And I know because you Matt, myself, Mayor, Carol, we sat through a year and a half of meetings, and then we kind of put that aside, and you built on top of that, and you built
Right.
it even better.
Right.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, once we approve this tonight, can there be changes made by staff on different numbers and stuff?
So this ordinance establishes the regulations that a developer will have to follow to develop within this property. The standards are the standards, and staff cannot deviate from them, with the exception that there is a very minor, we call it the minor modification. So this allows for that very minor change. If you recall, we talked about in one of your previous meetings about, I think it's a 10% minor deviation, essentially, that can be approved by the director, where it essentially allows for a unique site condition where, you know, maybe you have a curved road and you want to be able to bring the building as close as you can to the street, but you need it to be 4.5 feet instead of 5 feet from the property line. It will allow for that minor deviation from the standard, but it's limited to what standards it can deviate from. And so, other than that, there is not, no, it would require going through a variance process with the Zoning Board of Adjustment.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yes, sir.
Is I want the public to understand that we're not giving you a carte blanche.
Right.
There is a minor deviation
Right.
that staff can approve without going to P&Z and coming to council.
Right.
Very well said. Thank you.
This establishes a new zoning classification, the LakePoint District, and what's in that classification has to be complied with. That's the bottom line.
Right. Just like we have in all of
Just
our
like
other
we have in
zoning
all our
districts
zoning
in the city.
classifications. William?
I feel like I lost my point in a earlier comment, and I want to circle back to that regarding single family. This particular single project, the land use plan certainly has an effect overall for the city, and an intent and a purpose and a dream or vision. But this one project isn't going to change the whole city. And I think that's what I sat down understanding with all the months and months of reading, and I just got confused for a moment. I don't feel threatened that the fabric of our city is being destroyed by our considerations of 69 acres. And I want to make sure I'm not, losing my mind here, and I'm understanding. This whole thing makes me feel comfortable until a recent conversation. What I envision in this is it look potentially, if I may, not directed at Don necessarily, but I recently visited the Pearl in San Antonio. I've been to other developments all over Texas, and wow, right? So I don't want to mess up our city because of these single little wow locations. I just want to make sure I'm hearing this thing right. I don't know if that's a question. I'm sorry. I'm just felt confused for a moment.
Yeah, no, I think the reality is that the plan directs us to focus our attention on some very specific areas in our community, that the vast majority of our community is what we called preserve and enhance, or parks and green space. It was over 85% of our community that essentially we said, it's good the way it is. We just need to continue to enhance it and reinforce what already exists. It's the other areas that we see changing. Part of that is areas that are still growing. And so I want to say it's only about 2% of the city where that redevelopment is really focused. And so I would agree with you that the fabric of our community is not going to change because of changes in these small areas and these small spots of our community. But what it does is provide us that opportunity to live into the vision of the plan and what we heard from our community as we developed the plan, which is they want different kinds of places. I mean, you heard from speakers tonight, they moved to LakePoint because of that lifestyle that it offers. And I think that this new development will continue to build on what exists today and provide new opportunities for people who already live here and then people who want to move here too.
Suzanne.
Thank you. Ruth, I just want to go back one more time and elaborate on the numbers. I'm not a math girl,
But I think in talking to people, they get confused sometimes about the numbers. And we're talking about amending it to 1,100. Can you tell us what is existing already in that area?
So there are no existing multifamily in this regional activity center. The city council did approve the plan development for the Pearl a few months ago for 380 units. So you do have to deduct that out to be able to see what is remaining for this particular project, LakePoint Plaza. But the 1,100 is the total for the entire regional activity center.
Follow up?
Follow.
So if we do math here and we take 444 that is allowed in that area right now, and we take 384, is that correct, out of
380, I believe.
We are basically saying you get, what is that, what is that number? y'all?
Not even 100, yeah.
So that is not even reasonable for this development.
Right.
So it's not even feasible to do that. So when we're looking at 1,100, we're looking at 720 additional units in this particular development.
Right.
And another point I really want everybody to understand, and I think this is right, the first thing we're going to do, or Don's going to do, is not go put up 720 multifamily units, boom, overnight.
Right.
So my question is, and I know he probably doesn't know this more than you do, but what is the timeline for building? I mean, what's going to be built first? And can we expect 770 in the first year? I mean, I know the answer to that, but I would like it clarified because people knee-jerk when they hear 1,100 because I think they're going to see that right away.
Right, right. I'll see if Dawn wants
Clarification would
to
be great for the general public.
address that in any way.
So the current developer that's already approved is still trying to get financing. So when you think about, is somebody going to run out and build that plus 770 units, it's not even feasible. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. That's not going to happen. I'm just going to tell you. We have it phased over and don't hold me to this exactly, but it's in 2-year increments because you've got to absorb. Remember, these will be the highest rents in Sugar Land. We don't have rents like this in any of our multifamily units. So we're setting a new bar with this. So it's a little untested, but it's been proven because you look at the condos and you look at what their rental, they can support those rents. It's just what's the depth of the market. So we're going to go slowly and not overbuild because that's the tendency. You get an approval and you immediately go out and build, and that's not what we're going to do. I don't know if that helps.
Follow up, sir?
Follow up.
So thank you for that. I wanted that clarified because I think people just knee-jerk to what we're talking about here, and the truth is it's not going to happen overnight. And my last comment here is I appreciate everybody coming out and talking about your own individual concerns because listening to them, it makes a big difference. And I want to talk to the Poindexters. Thank you very much for pointing out that you've been involved this whole time and actually working with staff and our builder because it really conveys the message that they're all working together and they're flexible to make changes and work with us. So I think the best thing we've got about this is the fact that we have a developer listening to our community, a staff that's willing to work with them, and a council that hears you. So thank you. Can I make a motion to approve this? Not yet.
Sure. Let's start with A,
Oh,
which
sorry.
is Sugar Land Ordinance number 2326. Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Do I have a second? Second. I'll take Ferguson. I'll take Ferguson. If you vote at this time, please. And it's a 7-0 vote. Thank you, council members. Now, item number B, which is ordinance number 2325, which is chapter 2 of the Sugar Land Development Code.
Motion, so moved.
Got Kermali as a motion. Jacobson as the second. Vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council members. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you very
much.
much.
A lot of work going into this, didn't it? Item number C, 7C. Consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Resolution number 2341, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, casting a total of 127 votes out of 5,000 total votes in the election of 5 directors to serve on the Board of Directors of the Fort Bend Central Appraisal District for the 2024-2025 term. Jennifer Brown. Jennifer, I don't know why you'd want to serve on the appraisal board, but Thank goodness
I
we've
don't
got some
either.
Sugar Land residents that want to.
You are correct, Mayor. Thank you. So I will keep this short. It's been a long night. So the CAD Board of Directors consists of 5 voting board members. You want me to hold on just a moment? Okay.
Yeah, let's wait until we get everybody out.
Nobody wants to hear this. I don't know why.
They were heading to the door. They were heading to the door faster than you could get up there.
If we would have met with Finance Audit to discuss this, it would have been on consent. But since we weren't able to do that, here I am. So.
All right, go ahead, Jennifer.
All right. So the board members serve 2-year terms. They begin on January 1st of every even-numbered years, and so every odd-numbered fall, we are here before you. We get to allocate our votes, as do all of the other taxing entities within the counties. The board currently is made up of 5 members. Their names are shown on the screen, plus an ex officio member who is the current tax assessor collector, and she is not a voting member. So all 5 of the current board members have been nominated to serve another term. So our decision this evening is how to allocate your 127 votes. We nominated Jim Key and Mike Rozelle. And historically, what we've done is we have split the votes between the 2 candidates. So it would be 64 for one, 63 for the other. And so once we have that distribution, we will update resolution number 23-41, and we will get that sent in to the chief appraiser by December 15th, which is why this had to go on tonight's agenda. So
I'm going to
that is
suggest
our
we allocate the
recommendation.
numbers to the higher number to Jim Keys, and then the other number to Mike Rozelle. Both of them are
64.
residents. We certainly know Jim Rice, but he's living over in Riverstone now, so he's out of our city limits.
Yes, sir.
So
All right,
I'll make
we're
that motion.
64 to Jim Key and 63 to Mike Rozelle.
Got a second by McCutcheon. Everybody understand the motion on the table? Yes. Okay. All in favor? Vote at this time, please. And it's a 7-0 vote. Thank you, Jennifer. Item number 7D, first consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Ordinance number 2230, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, amending Chapter 7 building regulations of the Sugar Land Development Code by adopting the 2021 International Codes and the 2020 National Electric Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict thereof. And we've got Nicole Solis, our Assistant Director of Environmental and Neighborhood Services. Nicole.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tonight, I am presenting 2 ordinances to adopt, again, the 21 set of ICC codes and the 2020 NEC codes, as well as any associated amendments. So very quickly, I will go over the feedback that we received during the November workshop 2 weeks ago before moving on to the first reading of both of those ordinances. So just as a reminder, the ICC codes really serve as a foundation for ensuring that the structures within our city are safe, resilient, and adequately maintained. These codes come out on a 3-year cycle. Right now, we are operating on the 2015 codes. We skipped the 2018, and now we're proposing to adopt the 21 set of codes. During that workshop 2 weeks ago, we did present the significant changes between the 15 and the 21 codes. As well as any associated amendments that we had included. And we really focused on life safety and quality of life issues whenever we identified those amendments. And we always kept in mind the broader impact that it would have on our residents and businesses. During that workshop, we did receive feedback on one element of what we were proposing, and that had to do with the hours for landscaping noise. Now, we've completely pulled that out of this ordinance. We felt it was really important for us to move forward with the adoption prior to the end of the year. So we are taking a step back on that particular element and doing a little bit more research so that we can come back to council with a viable alternative. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the first reading of ordinance numbers 2320 and 2321 prior to second reading on December 19th with a major push for public education prior to the effective date of January 1st.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. I'm going to go ahead and read item number E, 7E. First consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land ordinance number 2321. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, amending the Code of Ordinances by many provisions in Chapter 3 related to nuisances and vegetation, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. Let's take item number D first. Any questions on item number D?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Jacobson. Do I have a second? Second by Kermally. You vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council. Item number E, which is ordinance number 2321, amending provisions in Chapter 3 related to the nuisances and vegetation. I'll make the motion.
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead, question.
Nicole, I missed the portion. You said the nuisance, the lawn services and all that, you're going to come back to us on that?
Yes, we will do a little bit more research. We want to look at what other cities are doing and really incorporate the feedback that we'd received from council. So coming back at a future point in time with an alternative.
Okay, so if we approve this ordinance, Mayor, do we need to have something in there? Because we had a little debate, you weren't here, about timings of lawnmower services on golf courses, and too late at night, too early in the morning. So I'm a little confused. Do we approve this tonight? I know we've got a January deadline.
Do you approve it or withdraw it and take it up later?
Yeah.
We have completely removed that element from it, so it is without
Without
any
that.
reference to that. Yes.
That's what I missed. Thank you.
Okay, motion stands. Do I have a
Second.
Second by Kermally. Vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council members. Item number F, first consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land ordinance number 2327. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, amending chapters 2 and 5 of the Code of Ordinances by amending fee provisions located in sections 2-137, 5-248, 5-249, 5-357, and 5-421, and adding a new section, 5-422, and setting an effective date. Meredith.
Thank you. So I don't have a very long presentation since these fees are all being amended or added based on the development agreement that you approved earlier tonight. So I'm just going to tell you what each change is. Chapter 2 is being amended. We're now adding a fire station fee of $10 per month. The new residents in the area of the development agreement will be paying for this. It will go towards funding a new fire station for them. It does not apply to anybody else in the city or the ETJ, just the individuals in this development. So we're amending Chapter 5. We're going to change 5-357. It's currently not allowed to have liquid waste hauling, but due to the potential timing of not getting enough of the plant built to cover the first 100 houses, we're going to allow temporary liquid waste hauling if you meet all permits and regulations on a temporary basis with the written approval of the Public Works Director. Section 2-48 is just adding a second category of retail water customers to be located in the ETJ and establishing their rate. Chapter 5-249, we're adding a connection fee for the development south of the Brazos River. Currently, the the Code of Ordinances has a development fee, a connection fee of $6,605. That will be north of the Brazos. For this new development, anything south of the Brazos, it's going to be $11,500 per connection. 4-21 is to allow the city to charge a fire protection service fee to retail water customers in the ETJ. It's currently written that we can charge the fire protection services fee to water customers in the ETJ, and these, because this development will be retail, we want to make sure that they can pay their fair share of fire services plus their 20%. And then just for fun, we're going to add an extra 5-422, and so that now that we have EMS, we're going to put a provision in there and allow them to pay an emergency medical services fee to these residents as well. Keep in mind that this additional fee, this fee is in addition to any charges that will be charged under Chapter 2 for a per service charge. So this is a flat rate they will pay, plus any time that they do receive emergency services, they will be subject to the same billing requirements as anybody else who receives services via ambulance. That's all I have.
Questions? Do I have a motion? Got a motion by McCutcheon. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Ferguson. You vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council members. Item number 8, the workshop. We're going to defer that till December the 19th. Is everybody on council agree with that? I'd also suggest item number 9, that we defer the council member reports and the city manager reports to a later date. We'll move to item number 10, closed executive session. Closed executive session is authorized by 551 Texas Government Code in accordance with 551074 personnel matters. And we're going to recess into the council dining room. City Manager 2024 Compensation Package. 11A, consideration of an action on city's manager's compensation for period October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2024.
Mayor? As best-looking member of the Compensation Committee, I would like to move. Do we specify the change in the meeting, or no?
You got the best hair.
Well, it's always in place. Unlike some people. Do we have to specify numbers?
Here, I've got
Percentages?
I'm going to read it.
Would you please?
Then you can
Okay.
make the motion.
All right, I'll do that.
City Manager's annual performance evaluation process began in September. Feedback from all council members was gathered and compiled, as well as total compensation data from benchmark cities. After reviewing and discussing the information, council is approving a 7% increase to the City Manager's 2024 annual salary. Can I get a motion?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I ain't doing it now.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All right, I got a motion by Kermel, I got a second by Lane. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I want to do my report.
We'll go out.
I send Natalie an email. That's okay.
Email Natalie.